Takeru is a student at an anti-magic high school and also the leader of the 35th Test Platoon, a group often labeled as the Hopeless Platoon. His classmates tend to look down on him because he used a sword during training the day before. In their eyes, swords have long been outdated ever since the Great War. Takeru tries his best to ignore their mockery. He attends the school as an Inquisitor trainee to pay off his parents' debt and to support his younger sister. As Takeru walks into the 35th Test Platoon's room, he finds Usagi dressed in a bunny costume, striking a playful pose. She is startled by his sudden arrival and reacts by pushing him away in embarrassment. She then questions whether her appearance seems pitiful or amusing to him, especially since he looks so emotional. Takeru responds that the outfit suits her well, but instead of being pleased, Usagi gets annoyed and calls him a pervert. Ikaruga laughs in the background, mentioning that she managed to capture a great photo. Takeru becomes irritated and warns Ikaruga not to tease Usagi like that again. With a mischievous smile, Ikaruga jokes about sharing the photo, describing it as an image of a bunny girl and a guy who looks overwhelmed after seeing her. Hearing that, Usagi immediately tries to grab Ikaruga's camera to stop her from spreading the picture. That same day, Sogetsu, the principal and also the head of the Inquisitors, delivers a punishment to Oka, one of the Inquisitors who had eliminated a witch. Sogetsu explains that an Inquisitor's duty is to capture witches and confiscate their magical relics, not to destroy them. Oka understands this, but at the time, she felt she had no other choice. Regardless of her reasoning, Sogetsu considers her actions a failure to follow protocol, so she must still face consequences. Oka asks if she's going to be dismissed, but Sogetsu clarifies that instead, her qualifications will be revoked, and she will be transferred to the anti-magic high school as a student. She will be assigned to the 35th Test Platoon, the group known for its poor reputation. Meanwhile, Usagi tells Takeru that they need to figure out what to do. It has already been half a year since they enrolled in the high school, yet they have not earned a single point. She believes they need a plan to turn things around. Ikaruga comments that with Takeru leading from the front, it might be difficult for them to achieve anything. Takeru apologizes for that, while Usagi urges him to be more aware of his role as the leader. Takeru admits that he might not be suited for the position. Ikaruga then tells them not to worry, saying she is confident her older sister can help. She has heard about an illegal sale of a D-rank magical relic, and if they manage to capture those involved, they could earn a lot of points. Hearing this, both Usagi and Takeru feel encouraged. Suddenly, Sogetsu enters the room and asks if they are surprised to see her. Ikaruga questions what brings someone like Sogetsu to visit a platoon like theirs. Sogetsu admits that she has heard many negative things about them, but personally, she considers the 35th Test Platoon to be a good group. She acknowledges that their abilities are currently disappointing, which is why she has brought in an additional member. Sogetsu then introduces Oka to the team. Oka is a former Inquisitor who has been transferred to the 35th Test Platoon for certain reasons. Sogetsu hopes they will get along. Oka greets them and Usagi recalls hearing about her before. Back in middle school, Oka was known as an outstanding student and managed to join the Inquisition within just a year and a half. Sogetsu also reveals that Oka is her daughter, even pointing out how similar their appearances are. However, Oka quickly clarifies that she is only Sogetsu's adopted daughter and asks everyone not to misunderstand, as they are not related by blood. Usagi admits that she does not really get along with prodigies from influential families. Noticing Takeru standing there in a daze, Usagi asks if he knows Oka. Takeru confirms that she used to be his classmate. Ikaruga then asks why Oka left the Inquisitors and joined the 35th Test Platoon. Oka apologizes, saying she cannot explain her reasons. Shortly after, Sogetsu leaves the room. The atmosphere becomes a bit awkward, and Takeru tries to greet Oka and ask how she has been, but Oka claims that she does not recognize him. That night, the members of the 35th Test Platoon head out on a mission. Seeing Oka joining them in the field, Ikaruga wonders why she is not staying in the platoon room, considering it is her first day. Oka says it is not a problem and believes she will not hold the team back. While the others carry out the mission, Ikaruga acts as their operator. Their target this time is an anthology created by Andref Jaeger, written at the beginning of the Witch Hunting War, specifically the first edition copy of Trackless Psalms. After printing the book, Andref embedded magic into it. The spell causes anyone who reads it to fall into a dangerous mental state. At that moment, Usagi prepares her position with a long-range rifle. Takeru asked what kind of situation Usagi had seen at that moment. Usagi explained that there was a lit-up spot on the 7th floor, and she had identified 2 targets. Deep down, she actually felt nervous about the mission, but she tried to deny it, even though no one had brought it up. Takeru then instructed Oka to circle around to the other side of the floor, saying that he would give a signal when it was time to strike. Meanwhile, a man was offering a special edition of a book called Trackless Psalms to a girl named Mari. Mari questioned whether the man was being reckless, pointing out that the transaction would be dangerous if the Inquisitors found out. The man simply smiled and said he did not care, especially since he still had other items. At that moment, Takeru spotted someone standing guard in the corridor in front of the target room. He quickly informed the others, saying he would give the signal when it was time to shoot, and he asked Ikaruga to carefully monitor the area. Takeru then ran toward the guard. The guard immediately aimed his pistol at him, but Takeru reacted quickly and fired first. After receiving confirmation that Usopp had taken her shot, Takeru rushed to open the door to the target room. As soon as he burst in, he announced that he was from the Inquisitors and that they would all be arrested for illegal possession and the theft of magical relics. However, Takeru was shocked to find several armed men inside the room he had just stormed. Confused, he asked Usagi what had happened. Usagi replied that she had shot 2 people in the head. Takeru realized that she had misidentified the target, more specifically the wrong building, and that what she had shot were actually just statues. Seeing the chaos unfold, Marie decided to make a quick escape. At that point, Takeru found himself surrounded and threatened by the armed men, who recognized him as a student from the Anti-Magic Academy. Clearly nervous, Takeru tried to brush it off by saying he had simply gotten lost. The men laughed at him, especially when they saw the sword he was carrying. They mocked him, calling his weapon outdated, and continued to make fun of him, which began to irritate Takeru. Ikaruga warned him to stay calm, reminding him that losing his temper would only make things worse. One of the men belittled Takeru's sword, claiming it would be useless against magic or modern weapons. Takeru's anger grew even stronger when the man referred to his sword as nothing more than a piece of scrap metal. Hearing that, Ikaruga realized she could no longer hold him back and decided to let him act as he wished. The man fired his gun at Takeru, but Takeru skillfully deflected the bullets with his sword. The man was visibly shocked. Fueled by anger, Takeru challenged all of them, determined to cut through everything in his path. The men kept firing at him, but he continued to block their attacks with precision. Takeru declared that he would demonstrate how his sword could strike cleanly without leaving a trace. Suddenly, Takeru heard the voice of his younger sister telling him not to make such a frightening expression. That voice snapped him back to his senses, and he calmed down. It turned out to be Ikaruga mimicking his sister's voice, even teasing him by calling him overly attached to her. She then asked about the situation. Takeru laughed it off and told the men that he had only been joking. Right then, Oka arrived and immediately took down the armed men. She moved swiftly, defeating them one by one. Takeru remarked on how impressive she was. Only one man remained, holding the trackless psalms. Oka demanded that he hand it over, but unexpectedly, he activated instant magic and summoned a dragoon. Takeru was confused about how the man possessed an Inquisitor weapon. Seeing the danger, Ikaruga instructed Usagi to move into position. Oka prepared herself to face the dragoon. The operator began firing wildly in all directions, but Oka skillfully dodged the attacks and struck the dragoon. Just as it was about to hit her, the machine suddenly stopped moving. Oka quickly captured the operator and explained that older dragoon models had fragile mechanisms and were not suited for close combat. Takeru hurried over to check on Oka, but unfortunately, he tripped and fell on top of her. In the awkward moment, his hand accidentally made inappropriate contact, which made the situation even more uncomfortable. Oka immediately reacted and struck him, telling him to get off. However, before he could recover, Takeru was hit on the head by debris caused by Usagi's shot. He lost consciousness and ended up lying motionless on top of Oka. In the following days, Oka kept going on missions by herself without inviting Usagi or Takeru to join. Usagi started questioning this behavior, but Oka simply told them to handle platoon missions without her, or that she would just take care of them alone. That answer irritated Usagi, and she felt insulted by the way Oka treated them. Ikaruga stepped in and told them to stop arguing, pointing out that it was pointless since Oka seemed focused only on her own goals. Oka eventually explained that Usagi's shooting skills were still lacking because she tended to get nervous, which caused her shots to miss. She also acknowledged that Ikaruga was excellent at maintaining equipment, but said she often went overboard, mentioning that modifying a standard pistol into a fully automatic weapon was unnecessary. According to Oka, those kinds of criticisms should have come from Takeru as the leader of the 35th Test Platoon. She bluntly stated that the 3 of them could not yet be considered proper Inquisitors, then immediately left. Usagi was clearly upset by Oka's attitude, while Ikaruga commented that Oka seemed to believe that strength was everything. Takeru, however, admitted that Oka might have a point and that continuing as they were could lead to problems in the future. One day, Usagi made red bean cream pastries. Takeru was surprised to see that she could bake. Usagi explained that she got the idea from him. They were planning to throw a welcome party for their new teammate. Takeru had even gone as far as buying a guidebook on how to bond with new members, convinced that Oka would eventually open up to them. When Oka arrived, they greeted her with a surprise party. However, instead of appreciating it, Oka scolded Takeru for holding a celebration during active platoon hours. She stated that she did not like socializing and tried to leave again. Before she could go, Takeru noticed an injury on her arm and asked about it. Oka refused to explain and walked away. Takeru offered to treat her wound, but Oka responded that she was not an inquisitor for fun like they were. Takeru chased after her, insisting that as both her leader and teammate, he could not ignore her condition. Oka refused to acknowledge him as either her leader or her ally. Still, Takeru did not back down. To him, being the leader meant taking responsibility, and he would not allow one of his team members to stay hurt. That night, Oka and Takeru were assigned a mission to capture members of Valhalla, a relatively unknown magic organization. It seemed that the people they encountered earlier were also part of that group. Acting impulsively, Takeru opened a door without thinking, but Oka quickly saved him from an explosion caused by a hidden bomb. Shortly after, two men appeared and started firing at them. Takeru reacted swiftly, deflecting the bullets with his sword. Oka then shot both attackers and proceeded to check the room inside, telling Takeru to hold them off. When Takeru followed her inside, they discovered that the victim had already been killed. Oka blamed herself for arriving too late. Overcome with emotion, she immediately fired at the perpetrators. Takeru was shocked and tried to stop her, warning that killing them would cost her her Inquisitor license. Oka broke down, shouting that she wanted to eliminate all those who abused magic. Takeru reminded her that the purpose of an Inquisitor was to protect people, not act out of revenge. Oka then revealed that her family had been killed by magic users, and she had sworn to dedicate her life to hunting them down. Takeru began to understand her pain. Oka explained that being with others would only get in the way of her personal mission, which was why she refused to become their teammate. She raised her weapon again, but Takeru managed to stop her. He told her that he believed she could still become part of their team. He admitted that he could not fully understand what she had been through, but he would not give up on her. Hearing that, Oka finally broke down in tears. Back when Takeru was still in middle school, Soitsu forced the students to take part in a deadly survival game. Takeru believed he would not lose and was determined to defeat everyone while proving the strength of his swordsmanship. At that time, Kizaki attacked Oka with a sword, but she easily defeated Kizaki in an instant. That moment became the beginning of Takeru and Oka's first meeting in the past. One day while walking down the school hallway, Takeru overheard other students talking about Oka. They regretted that someone who used to be a witch hunter had been assigned to the 35th Test Platoon, a squad widely seen as weak. Takeru felt embarrassed, realizing he had spoken too dramatically to her the day before. Meanwhile, Oka was in Soitsu's office. He advised her not to feel discouraged, explaining that although the members of the 35th Test Platoon seemed unimpressive, each of them actually possessed unique and powerful abilities. Oka, however, showed no interest in his praise. Sogetsu then revealed that one of the platoon members was a candidate to become a relic eater. Oka found that hard to believe and refused to accept it. She chose to leave immediately, and Soitsu acknowledged that someone as young as her was difficult to manage. At that moment, a girl named Lapis suddenly appeared in his room, and Sogetsu expressed his hope that she would soon form a contract. That night, Marie met with Haunted. He asked whether she had successfully obtained a fragment of a magical relic, but to Marie, the fragment held no real value. Haunted described himself as a witch capable of reviving the dead, an alchemist, and a spirit summoner. He pointed out that the Einherjar would need weapons to fight. Mary then questioned how many people he had killed. Haunted admitted that the number was around 50, most of them criminals. Mary was clearly upset, and if she had the chance to walk away, she would have chosen to stop him herself. Haunted reassured her that he had promised not to involve civilians, since Valhalla's only enemies were the Inquisitors. He firmly believed that Valhalla would win and erase all prejudice and discrimination against witches. Mary reminded him to keep that promise. On another day, Usagi demonstrated her incredible shooting accuracy in front of Ikuruga. She admitted that during a previous mission, her aim had been slightly off, causing her shot to miss. However, she was confident that she would show her true skill in the next mission. Ikuruga was surprised that Usagi described missing an entire building as only a small mistake. Usagi promised that after seeing her abilities, Oka would no longer speak carelessly to her. Suddenly, Oka appeared and startled Usagi. Takeru invited Oka to have lunch together, but she made it clear that she did not recognize him as her leader. She mentioned hearing from Sogetsu that Takeru had become an Inquisitor mainly for money. In her view, he should feel ashamed for failing as a leader and being unfit for the role. Hearing this, Ikuruga questioned whether Oka had the right to say such things, considering that she had only come to the Anti-Magic Academy after losing her Inquisitor qualifications. Ikuruga also brought up how other Inquisitors referred to Oka as a calamity because she often eliminated suspects without restraint and left chaos behind. Usagi was shocked by what she heard. Oka could not deny those accusations and chose to walk away. At the same time, Haunted stood in the middle of the city, surprised by how calm everything felt compared to when he was alive. To him, the place lacked something essential to human life. There was no love, no hope, no desire, no despair, no shouting, and no sense of tension. Feeling that emptiness, he used his magic to summon the Einherjar and disrupt the city's peace. Meanwhile, Oka was surprised to find Takeru had followed her to her family's gravesite. Her parents and younger sister were buried there. Takeru asked her to share what had happened to them. The tragedy had occurred 9 years earlier, when a witch killed her family. Oka had tried to save them, but she was too late. Since then, she had sworn to dedicate her entire life to hunting witches. Because of that, whenever she faced criminals, her emotions took over and she lost control, acting without restraint to bring them down. She admitted that being called a calamity might not be entirely wrong. Takeru insisted that her way of thinking was mistaken, but Oka reminded him that he once said he would never give up on making her his ally. She explained that she had abandoned her sense of humanity to defeat her enemies, something she believed Takeru and the others could never do. To her, they were nothing more than obstacles in her path of revenge. Not long after, they noticed thick smoke rising from the center of the city. Oka immediately suspected it was a terrorist attack. Meanwhile, Haunted explained that Einherjar's target was the Anti-Magic Academy, a restricted area for witches. Their mission was to rescue the high-ranking members of Valhalla who had been captured. Oka ran toward the center of the city, suspecting that everything happening was the work of evil spirits and witches. Along the way, she encountered knights fighting against enemies. They urged her to return to the school immediately. Oka asked what was going on, convinced that their enemies were not just witches and evil spirits, especially after hearing a massive explosion earlier. The knights informed her that Einherjar had appeared in the city. At the same time, Takeru managed to defeat the witch who had attacked him. He wondered why Oka had suddenly left him behind. As he ran, he felt as if someone was speaking to him. Surprised, he checked his surroundings, but suddenly Ikaruga contacted him and asked him to listen to Sogetsu's instructions. Sogetsu then announced that the targets appearing in the city were heroic spirits summoned from ancient times, known as Einherjar. Their objective was the restricted area within the school. He instructed all students to fight together and punish the witches he described as dangerous. Sogetsu framed the moment as a time to hunt witches and bring judgment upon those who had gone astray. Ikaruga waited for Takeru's decision on whether they should run or fight. Takeru believed it would be better to retreat, considering that the 35th Test Platoon could not even confiscate low-level magic, making it unlikely they could do anything in such a battle. However, Ikaruga suspected that Takeru actually intended to fight. Takeru explained that Oka, driven by her hatred of witches, was heading toward the school. She was still a member of the 35th Test Platoon, but she could not be stopped through ordinary means. To stop Oka, Takeru concluded that he had to hunt down the Einherjar himself. When Oka arrived at the scene, she approached an injured person who urged her to run, saying that facing the Einherjar was impossible. The Einherjar was destroying buildings around them. Oka opened fire, but her attacks were blocked by a powerful defense. The Einherjar retaliated, sending her flying backward. Despite the overwhelming strength of the attacks, Oka refused to accept defeat. She was determined not to fall to the Einherjar. With no other option in such an emergency, she decided to use Vlad's power. First, she asked him to heal her leg. Not long after, as the Einherjar approached, Oka ordered Vlad to release the first stage of his power. Meanwhile, Sogetsu observed everything from his room. Vlad explained that their enemy had summoned a high-level spirit and fused it with a dragoon. The opponent was Arthur Pendragon, wielding the magical relic Excalibur. Because of this, Oka needed to be extremely cautious. Oka fired again and managed to land a hit, but the damage quickly healed due to Excalibur's sheath. As long as the sheath remained intact, her attacks would be meaningless. She then asked Vlad to analyze the Einherjar's magic and find a weakness in its defense. Vlad questioned whether that meant she was willing to accept him, and Oka told him to take her blood. Vlad accepted her offer, and Oka unleashed an attack called Tep's Rain, which weakened the Einherjar's defenses. She believed that by continuing the strategy, she could eventually defeat it. However, Vlad suddenly stated that his master had ordered him to stop hunting witches. He then disappeared, leaving Oka vulnerable. Moments later, the Einherjar struck her down. Just as the Einherjar prepared to attack again, Takeru suddenly arrived and drew his sword against it. Oka urged him to run, insisting they had no chance of winning. However, Takeru responded that they would never know unless they tried. He stepped forward, ready to fight. It had been a long time since he felt this way. Seeing him stand with his sword, Oka was reminded of their first meeting back in middle school. Takeru swiftly launched an attack, and his blade managed to cut into the Einherjar. He realized how tough the enemy was, but the fact that it could be scratched meant it could be cut down. He struck again, and soon Ikaruga informed him that based on its magical capacity, the enemy's weapon was indeed Excalibur. However, its firing system resembled a railgun, similar to what they had encountered during training, meaning there was a delay between each shot. Takeru understood that his best opportunity to attack was right after the Einherjar fired. As soon as it released an attack, he rushed in. He declared that he would not lose in close combat. After he struck with his sword, Usagi provided support by firing from a distance. However, unexpectedly, the Einherjar countered with a powerful magical attack, prompting Ikaruga to urgently tell Takeru to fall back. Takeru immediately ran to get some distance, but the magic attack released by Einherjar quickly triggered a massive explosion. Ikaruga tried to reach him, yet she could not see anything clearly because of the thick smoke covering the area. In that moment, Takeru realized it might truly be impossible for him to defeat Einherjar. He never expected things would end for him in such a grim way. Suddenly, a girl appeared right in front of him and congratulated him for being chosen as the second contractor. She explained that in order to form a contract, he needed to answer a few questions. In the next instant, Takeru found himself in a strange place where the girl introduced herself as Lapis. Her first question was whether Takeru had the desire to become an inquisitor, and he answered that he did. The second question asked if he was prepared to eliminate witches, and Takeru responded that he was ready to take down those who use their powers for harm. Then came the third question, asking if he could set aside what mattered most to him in order to achieve his goal. Takeru refused. Finally, Lapis asked whether he could abandon his own humanity in order to defeat his enemies. Takeru recalled what Oka once said about discarding her humanity to win, and he gave a similar answer. With that, the contract was instantly formed. Lapis instructed him to pull the trigger on his sword. A program then began, merging with him and restoring his injured body. Soon after, the transformation into Witch Hunter mode was complete, and Takeru prepared himself to pass judgment on those who misused magic. He was clearly surprised by what had just happened to him. Lapis congratulated him again, expressing her relief at finally being able to serve an inquisitor. She revealed that she was one of the relic eaters, and that Takeru had been chosen as her wielder. As Einherjar approached, Lapis told Takeru to face it head-on. There was no need to dodge anymore. He simply needed to strike it down. Takeru immediately blocked the incoming attack and quickly realized how powerful his sword had become. He then launched his own counterattack using its abilities. Meanwhile, Ikaruga was shocked to see Takeru standing again. Takeru planned to explain everything to his teammates after the battle. Oka also realized that Takeru had been chosen by a relic eater. After some time, the Einherjar prepared to unleash another magic attack. Lapis told Takeru to stand firm and pull the trigger again, as they would respond with their own magic. As she cast a spell, Einherjar's attack rushed toward Takeru. However, the magic within Takeru's sword absorbed the incoming attack, storing it for later use. The rest depended entirely on Takeru's own skill. Without hesitation, Takeru charged forward. He believed he could do it, as both his body and his sword were now incredibly resilient. Leaping toward Einherjar, he unleashed the dual blade technique known as Yamata no Orochi. In an instant, Einherjar's body shattered and exploded. Haunted acknowledged the Inquisitor who had defeated Einherjar, realizing that he would need to come up with another plan. After the battle, Takeru approached Oka and told her that he would not stand in the way of her revenge. However, in return, he asked her to share some of that burden with him. He wanted her to rely on him. Oka seemed surprised, wondering if she was really allowed to ask for something like that. She then said that they were partners. With a gentle smile, she accepted his words, and Takeru rested his head on her lap, taking a moment to recover from the exhaustion. That day, Sogetsu asked Haunted about the condition of the female witch. It turned out that, to prevent any information from leaking, a kind of magic erasure mechanism had been implanted in her head. Haunted explained that the witch's name was Mari. She had been on their wanted list, and for the past 3 years she had been known as the Aurora Witch. Sogetsu wondered whether Mari's allies might show up, either to rescue her or to silence her. After that, Sogetsu brought Mari to the Anti-Magic Academy. Later, Sogetsu informed Takeru and the others that a relic eater chooses its own master. As it happened, Lapis was the only one who did not yet have an owner. Lapis's real name was Malleus Maleficarum type Twilight Mistiltine, and she was a sword-type relic eater. Because of that, she needed someone skilled in close combat, someone like Takeru. Lapis stated that Takeru was good enough for her, since not just anyone could wield her. Even if someone had a strong body without proper reflexes, they would not be able to use her effectively. Sogetsu pointed out that there was only one issue. Lapis could speak just like a normal human. To avoid causing trouble among the students, he decided to place Lapis in Takeru's class. He had already prepared an identity for her and listed Takeru as her guardian. Usagi found it strange that Sogetsu had gathered them all just to explain that. Sogetsu then clarified that he had called them in because the 35th Test Platoon had successfully stopped the Einherjar. As a result, he wanted to assign them a special mission. Not long after, Sogetsu brought Mari in and introduced her to the group. He explained that the school had recently implemented a new policy allowing witches to be accepted and even join the Inquisitors. Oka was clearly surprised to hear that. Sogetsu confirmed that Mari was indeed a witch and would be the first one to enroll at the school. Because of that, he asked the team to keep an eye on her. He also instructed them to keep Mari's identity as a witch confidential for the time being. Then Soetsu asked Mari to introduce herself, and she greeted them in a flat, emotionless tone. After leaving Soetsu's office, Mari asked Takeru and the others to leave her alone. She promised she would not run away, since there was a device like an explosive attached to her neck. Takeru explained that the device would activate if Mirai used magic. Usagi felt that leaving Mari alone might be fine, since with the Gleipnir device around her neck, she was basically no different from an ordinary person. Ikeruga commented that Mari seemed troublesome and agreed with letting her be. Unexpectedly, Oka firmly reminded everyone that this was a mission, and they had to carry it out. As Inquisitors, they could not allow a witch to wander around unsupervised. She also warned Mari not to assume everything would go the way she wanted. Oka insisted that Mari report to them if she intended to go anywhere. Mari found that bothersome, and in response, Oka made it clear that if this were not a mission, she would not want to guard a witch at all. The two of them continued arguing. Oka openly stated that she not only disliked witches but also hated magic itself. Mari found that strange, considering that Inquisitors also used magic and Relic Eaters were magical artifacts as well. Seeing the tension escalate, Takeru stepped in and asked them to calm down. Mari could not help but feel confused about why she had to deal with all of this. During shooting practice, Oka hit her targets with precision, while Mari's shots missed by a wide margin. In physical education, Oka performed exceptionally well in the high jump, while Mari struggled. However, in the classroom, when questions about magic came up, Oka could not answer them, whereas Mari responded with ease. Mari felt she had the upper hand in that area, which only irritated Oka further. When lunchtime arrived, the cafeteria was packed with students. Mari quickly managed to get some bread and took the chance to tease Oka, pointing out that even a model student like her could not answer certain questions. Not wanting to back down, Oka fired back by saying that Mari was terrible at sports and mockingly compared her to a slow-moving turtle. Their argument escalated again, drawing attention and creating a scene in the cafeteria. Takeru, when he tried to step in and separate them, both of them reacted at the same time and ended up knocking him down. No one expected that punch to Takeru's face to hurt that much. Mari suddenly handed him a cold drink. Takeru hesitated for a moment, unsure if he should accept it. Mari explained that it was meant to ease the pain on his face. Takeru then apologized to Mari about Oka, explaining that she tended to get emotional whenever magic was involved. He added that Oka had been through a lot and that she was not a bad person, so he hoped Mari could forgive her. Mari found it strange that Takeru was the one apologizing, especially since she was technically a witch, someone considered their enemy. However, Takeru believed that just because Mari was a witch did not automatically make her an enemy. She attended the academy and aimed to become an Inquisitor, so he was convinced she was on their side. Mari warned him not to trust people so easily. She even pointed out that she could have harmed him while he slept. Feeling annoyed, she tossed her empty can toward a trash bin, but it missed. She picked it up and properly threw it away. Seeing that, Takeru burst into laughter. He found it amusing that Mari followed the rules even after saying something so harsh. To him, it seemed that witches were not so different from ordinary people. Mari quickly told him to stop talking like that. She assumed that Takeru wanted to become an Inquisitor because he hated witches. Takeru denied it and instead asked why Oka wanted to become one. The truth was, Oka herself still did not have a clear answer. Takeru then said that if someone like Mari did not have a strong determination, becoming an Inquisitor would not be possible. Mari admitted that many people saw magic as something dangerous, and she wanted to change that perception. She wanted to prove that magic was not inherently harmful and could actually be used to help others. While some types of magic were indeed dangerous, there were also kinds that could bring good. She wanted to prove that, and at the same time, she intended to stop those who misused magic. Takeru commented that her goal was admirable. Mari, however, found Takeru strange for not hating magic or witches. They eventually introduced themselves, and Mari remarked that Takeru's name sounded cute. Suddenly, a troubling thought crossed her mind, leaving her visibly startled. Meanwhile, Haunted was deep in thought, trying to decide what to do next. The night before, Mari had scolded him for breaking his promise, since he had previously said he would not harm civilians. Not long after, a group of Inquisitors arrived to apprehend him. When Haunted prepared to unleash his magic, Mari urged the Inquisitors to retreat. Unfortunately, it was too late. Haunted had already planted magical seeds within them, and in an instant, they collapsed as the magic took effect. Soon after, more Inquisitors arrived, capturing Mari in the process. Haunted then cast a memory-altering spell and quickly left the scene. At that moment, Noct, who was with Haunted, wondered if it would have been better to place an explosive spell on Mari instead. Haunted simply smiled and said that he had no intention of ending her life. Instead, he wanted her to face lasting emotional consequences. Mari's capture by the Inquisitors was something he had not anticipated, and he had no intention of leaving things as they were. He was willing to do whatever it took for Valhalla and for what he cared about. Back at the 35th Test Platoon room, the argument between Mari and Oka continued, with Takeru constantly trying to calm them down. He reminded Oka that their mission was to keep an eye on Mari, and he also asked Mari to stop stirring up trouble. When Oka heard Takeru casually calling Mari by her first name, she questioned why they seemed so close. Takeru responded that it was not a problem since Mari herself had suggested it. Playfully, Mari wrapped her arm around Takeru in front of Oka and hinted that they had grown closer. Oka grew irritated, thinking that Takeru was being swayed by Mari. Takeru quickly clarified that it was all a misunderstanding, explaining that Mari's first name was simply easier to say than her last name. Usagi stepped in and scolded everyone, reminding them that it was not the time to argue over something so trivial. She then informed them about the Anti-Magic Academy's autumn training tournament. Later that day, Takeru ran into Kyoya and Akira while checking the tournament announcement on the bulletin board. Kyoya looked down on the 35th Test Platoon for participating, but Takeru casually replied that he and his teammates were mainly aiming for the prize. Kyoya called him a loser and mentioned that the 35th Test Platoon would face the 15th Test Platoon in the second round. He said he was looking forward to it, though he doubted they would even make it past the first round. Afterward, Akira apologized to Takeru for her captain's behavior. As Takeru was about to head home, he ran into Mari at the school gate. She had been waiting for him because she was going to stay over at his place. Suddenly, Oka showed up and pulled on Mari's head, convinced that Mari must have been using some kind of charm spell. Oka refused to let someone as dangerous as Mari be alone with Takeru. Mari denied the accusation, but Oka insisted that someone like Takeru would easily fall for cheap tricks like that. Mari had no choice but to stay at Takeru's place since there were no empty rooms left in the girls' dorm. On top of that, the existence of Gleipnir was not known to the other students, so she had to stay outside the school grounds. Usagi still lived with her parents, and Ikaruga did not have a place either. Besides, Mari clearly did not want to stay with Oka. Oka, however, refused to let Mari stay alone with Takeru and decided to act as a supervisor to make sure Mari would not harm him. When they arrived in front of Takeru's apartment, the place looked eerie and the sound of crows made it even more unsettling. Oka seemed visibly scared, and Mari even suggested that she should just go home. Mari did not expect that someone as exemplary as Oka would be afraid of ghosts. Once they reached the door, Takeru handed the key to Mari and left for his part-time job. Mari held Oka back, not wanting to be left alone. Meanwhile, Hayato and Kanata were watching Mari from a distance. Kanata wondered why Valhalla had not shown up yet, even though Mari had already been taken out of the school. That night, when Takeru returned from work, he was surprised to see Mari right after she had finished showering. Embarrassed, Mari asked him to wait outside for a moment. Not long after, Oka came running toward Mari, shouting in fear. Both Oka and Mari ended up crashing into Takeru, and moments later, he received 2 quick slaps to the face. Before going to sleep, Takeru asked Mari how she felt after spending her first day at the Anti-Magic Academy. He also mentioned that she seemed to be getting along better with Oka. Mari found that assumption strange since she felt that she and Oka were completely incompatible. Takeru explained that none of the members of the 35th Test Platoon really cared about whether someone was a witch or not. Even though teamwork might be difficult at first, he believed they would eventually figure it out. Mari responded by pointing out that their worlds were fundamentally different, since she was a witch and Takeru was human. The next day was the tournament. The 35th Test Platoon was competing in the first round. Usagi pleaded with Takeru to help her as she found herself in a tough situation. Takeru told her to stay calm and not panic. At that moment, Oka had already taken down 2 opponents, but she felt that Usagi was too far away for her to reach in time. Meanwhile, Mari showed no intention of helping them. Takeru realized that they needed to hold out until an opportunity came to assist Usagi. Unexpectedly, their opponents mocked him, challenging him to use his sword technique. Takeru tried to keep his composure. He decided to buy time by acting as a decoy and asked Oka to take down the 2 enemies approaching Usagi. Takeru stepped forward and began his sword technique, but the audience laughed at him. Hearing that, Mari reluctantly stepped in to distract their opponents. At the same time, Oka and Usagi launched their attacks. Usagi managed to land a precise shot. The 35th Test Platoon successfully finished the match. Takeru praised everyone for their hard work, but Usagi pointed out that Ikaruga had not made any offensive moves. Ikaruga responded playfully, saying Usagi deserved a reward, then teased her in a way that made Usagi flustered. Takeru stated that the one who contributed the most in that match was Mari. Mari brushed it off, saying she had only been hit. Oka clarified that while she was not exactly acknowledging Mari's contribution, the distraction had been very helpful. Mari insisted that she had not done it for their sake. Ikaruga jokingly called Mari a tsundere and added another teasing remark, which annoyed Mari even more, especially when Ikaruga compared her to Lapis in a way that made her uncomfortable. Takeru then suggested celebrating their first victory by going out to eat together. Oka said she needed to report to Sugetsu first. When she arrived at his office, she found documents about an amnesiac witch known as the Aurora Witch. The files also revealed a connection to Valhalla, along with records of serious crimes that had been committed. Oka was deeply shocked after reading through the information. That night, Takeru and the others were walking around, checking out the different game booths. Seeing how close Usagi and Ikaruga had become, he commented on how well they got along. Takeru mentioned that the two of them used to clash a lot, just like Mari and Oka, constantly arguing whenever they met. He genuinely hoped that Mari and Oka could one day build a similar kind of bond. Mari, however, firmly rejected the idea. Takeru then brought up something he had been thinking about since the day before. Mari had previously said that she was a witch while he was just a human, meaning their worlds were completely different. Takeru admitted that he did not really understand what her world was like, but from what he had seen, Mari did not seem all that different. To him, she was no different from Usagi, Ikaruga, or even Oka. Because of that, he asked her not to distance herself just because she was a witch. Mari confessed that she could not remember her past, although fragments of her memories would occasionally return. Those moments made her think that she might have been a bad person, and that possibility scared her. Takeru reassured her, telling her not to worry. No matter what kind of person she might have been, he would not turn his back on her. When Mari asked what he would do if she truly turned out to be someone terrible, Takeru replied that he would get upset and figure out how to deal with it together, because that was what being teammates meant. Hearing that, Mari thanked him, then invited Takeru to try out the different games at the booths. On the second day of the tournament, Takeru and the others were watching a match. Ikaruga commented that the allure of robots was something humans could never fully replicate. Mari immediately called her out for being inappropriate. Not long after, Oka approached them and Mari casually joked that even a model student could be late sometimes. Oka responded with a sharp glare, leaving Mari confused since she had only been joking. Oka then asked Takeru to speak with her privately. She brought up Mari's past, saying that Mari had once been involved in a killing. Takeru found it hard to believe. Meanwhile, Hayato was monitoring the tournament when Sugetsu approached him. Hayato suspected that Oka might have learned the truth about Mari since she had been present at the arrest scene earlier. Sugetsu believed that even if Oka told Takeru, it would not change how he felt. He also wondered whether Valhalla would make an appearance. At the same time, the 35th Test Platoon was facing off against the 15th Test Platoon. Mari found it strange that both Takeru and Oka seemed to be watching over her so closely. Takeru told her not to overthink things, assuring her that he and Oka would protect her. Earlier, Oka had informed Takeru that the file she read claimed Mari had worked with Valhalla and had been involved in serious crimes. While it was true that Mari had a criminal record, there were still many unknowns, including the reason she had been accepted and the real purpose of their special mission to monitor her. Kyoya ordered his subordinates to hold their fire, saying he would handle Takeru himself. Suddenly, Akira appeared, surrounded by thorn-like tendrils, and managed to strike Kyoya. As Takeru moved to help, a man named Haunted emerged from within those thorny tendrils. He introduced himself as the commander of Valhalla's 4th unit. Sugetsu had been expecting his arrival. Haunted approached Takeru and stated that he had come to take Mari away. Mari did not recognize him and wondered how he even knew her name. Haunted tried to reassure her, saying she did not need to be afraid because he was there to save her. His words, however, carried an unsettling tone as he remarked that her frightened expression was beautiful. At that moment, Hayato ordered the snipers to open fire on Haunted. Sugetsu hoped that Haunted could be captured alive, but Hayato believed that was impossible. In his view, they would not stand a chance unless they took him down. With the situation turning against him, Haunted attempted to escape. He activated the thorny tendrils, causing destruction around the area. Oka quickly pushed Mari out of the way to protect her from falling debris. Haunted then used his magic to create a trap designed to capture Mari, one that could not be broken through with bullets. Sugetsu observed that it seemed to be a new type of sealing magic, and even the Dragoon units from the Magic Academy were affected by it. Hayato requested permission to use the Relic Eater, and Sugetsu granted it, suggesting that the witch be left to the 35th Test Platoon. Meanwhile, Mari and Takeru were trapped inside a dark barrier. Mari believed it would be nearly impossible to escape. Haunted explained that the barrier had been sealed, leaving no way out. As Haunted slowly approached them, Takeru told Mari to stay back and prepared to face him. Haunted questioned whether Takeru was Mari's boyfriend, but quickly dismissed the idea, claiming that Mari already belonged to him. He expressed an intense attachment to her, saying he wanted her to return his feelings, and that he would be deeply upset if she did not. Takeru felt genuinely fed up with Haunted's attitude, while Haunted showed clear hostility toward him. On the other hand, Takeru was just as determined to stop Haunted. He then activated his Witch Hunter mode using Relic Eater and prepared himself to deal with a witch like Haunted. He asked Lapis to provide information about Haunted, and she explained that Haunted was a Valhalla witch with an S-level threat rating. Haunted wondered if Takeru was the one who had defeated his Einherjar. He seemed surprised to learn that the person responsible was actually a Relic Eater contractor. Haunted had not expected Takeru to possess such power. He then tried to persuade Takeru to let him go, but Takeru had no intention of forgiving someone like him. As Takeru leaped forward to strike, Haunted suddenly extended thorn-like tendrils from his palm, piercing Takeru. Takeru collapsed from the attack and Mary reacted in shock. Lapis explained that she needed time to heal his body. At the same moment, Haunted began transforming into another form. Meanwhile, Oka tried to wake Usagi, who had fallen unconscious. Ikaruga approached and teased Usagi with a sarcastic remark about her skills, which surprisingly caused Usagi to regain consciousness almost immediately. Not long after, Sobitsu contacted Oka. She confronted him over Mari's arrest and stated that she had found traces of magic at the scene. Mari's magic type was Ancient Aurora magic, but the traces left behind were from Ancient Despair magic. Since it was impossible for both types to exist together, Oka concluded that Mari was not responsible for what happened there. This became her evidence that Mari's arrest was unlawful. Sugetsu then asked if Oka had come to a decision, and she responded by making a single request. At the same time, Haunted mentioned that it was his first time facing a sword-type Relic Eater, though he found it underwhelming. He had not transformed in a long time and casually asked about Nokt's condition, to which Nokt responded that everything was in perfect shape. Takeru was surprised that Haunted could switch into a witch hunter-like form, but Lapis clarified that it was actually a hero mode transformation using a lost magical relic. She added that Dainsleif was a destructive sword once wielded by a Scandinavian hero. Takeru began to question whether he had been outmatched in swordsmanship. Haunted then approached Mari and implied that she did not belong there, as she was also a witch. However, Mari refused to be associated with him and claimed she did not even know who he was. Haunted explained that Mari was still under the effects of memory-altering magic and intended to remove it. Once Mari's memories returned, she recalled being taught at the orphanage that magic should not harm others but instead bring happiness. She also remembered Haunted asking her to cooperate in order to free the orphaned children. Realizing everything, Mari felt overwhelmed with guilt, understanding that many people had been hurt because of her actions. She sincerely apologized, acknowledging that she was not the person Takeru believed her to be and that she had broken his trust. Haunted then tried to persuade Mari to return to his side, suggesting that doing so would ensure Takeru's safety and reunite her with the orphaned children. According to him, there would be no need to continue the conflict, and everyone could remain safe if Mari agreed. However, Takeru believed the story about the orphanage was nothing more than a lie. Mari struggled to understand his reasoning, but Takeru explained that Oka had already investigated the orphanage and discovered that all the children had passed away. Haunted then revealed voices resembling those children, claiming that reviving them was simple for a death-related witch like himself. He openly admitted responsibility for their deaths. Hearing this, Mari broke down in distress. Haunted appeared to take satisfaction in her reaction, while Mari was left devastated, realizing she had been unable to protect the people she cared about and that many lives had been lost. Seeing how overwhelmed Mari was with guilt, Takeru told her that he would not let her punish herself like that. Instead, he encouraged her to use her magic to save more people, because that had always been her dream. In his view, that was the only way she could make up for what had happened, even if she herself, and those who had passed away, might never forgive her. If the burden felt too heavy to carry alone, Takeru asked her to share some of it with him. Mari was deeply moved by his words. Takeru then prepared himself to face Haunted once again. Haunted mocked him, saying that none of his words had made any impact. The two clashed in close combat, their swords striking back and forth. Takeru's attacks were swiftly avoided, and Haunted managed to land a hit on him. Haunted pointed out that Takeru's technique of accelerating his thought process was useless, since he understood every detail of the human body. Takeru pressed forward again, but suddenly he was struck by an invisible attack. Lapis activated a retinal analysis layer, revealing that Dainsleif's ability allowed it to create additional attack manifestations, leaving behind traces that remained even after being used. Takeru asked if Lapis could alter his sword, and she confirmed that she could. He immediately rushed toward Haunted and transformed his weapon into a short sword, landing the successful hit. Haunted acknowledged Takeru's cleverness. Then, Takeru split his weapon into two blades and struck him again. Out of nowhere, Haunted threw a Kira toward Takeru, catching him off guard. In that brief moment of distraction, Haunted drove his blade into Takeru. He laughed, belittling Takeru for being so vulnerable. At that moment, Mari recalled the advice that she could use her magic to protect the people she cared about. She decided to cast her spell, even though it might be her last, since the Gleitner around her neck was supposed to detonate if she used magic. She unleashed her spell toward Haunted, but he managed to evade it. Haunted was momentarily surprised, yet he quickly read the intent behind Mari's attack and avoided it with ease. Mary was confused as to why the Gleipnir had not activated. Then Oka appeared and explained that it would not explode because she had already pressured Suigetsu into disabling it. Oka admitted that she did it solely to save Takeru. She wanted Mari to prove that magic could be used to save others, just as Mary had always claimed. If Mary could truly do that, Oka said she would acknowledge her. Mary responded by calling Oka incredibly annoying, making it clear that she would act for her own reasons, not for Oka. Oka then threw anti-magic material at Haunted Sword. It was made from red anti-magic metal ore, something black mages despised. She followed up by firing at him from close range. Haunted nearly countered her, but Usagi intervened with a precise shot. Usagi apologized for only now managing to aim properly. Haunted grew even more determined to defeat them all. Mari began chanting another spell and launched it toward him, but once again he avoided it. This time, however, Takeru absorbed Mari's magic. Haunted then called on Noct to provide a special enhancement. Takeru steadied himself and prepared his sword technique. Their blades clashed again, each empowered by unique abilities. Noct acknowledged the strength of Takeru's weapon, yet remained confident that Takeru could not surpass him. At that moment, Lapis activated a Twilight anti-magic reversal. Haunted was caught off guard when he realized Takeru was now using Mari's magic. Lapis revealed that her unique ability allowed her to absorb magic. She declared that neither Haunted nor his weapon could match her or Takeru. With that power, Takeru managed to restore Haunted's body to its original state. When Haunted asked for his name and learned that Takeru belonged to a demon-hunting clan, Takeru was puzzled as to how he knew that. Without another word, Haunted chose to retreat. As the battle ended, Takeru's body gave out and the magical seal disappeared. Mari rushed over to him, thanking him sincerely and expressing how grateful she was to have met him. Takeru simply smiled in response. One day, Usagi's mother Kikyo asked her how school had been going. Usagi happily said that her school life had been really fun. However, that was not what Kikyo was actually asking about. Based on Usagi's grades, Kikyo believed there was no way Usagi would move up to the next grade and graduating seemed impossible. Hearing that, Usagi immediately apologized. Kikyo then stated that she would speed up Usagi's arranged marriage, and that the current month would be Usagi's last time attending school. Without waiting for a response, Kikyo left. Usagi desperately called out to her, promising that she would improve her grades and make it to graduation. But Kikyo refused to listen to her pleas. On top of that, Kikyo revealed that she was not Usagi's biological mother. That same day, the students of the Anti-Magic Academy gathered to listen to an announcement from Reima, who stood in front of them. He announced that the school would once again hold the Witch Hunt Festival. Takeru quietly asked Ikaruga about the person speaking. Ikaruga explained that he was a transfer student who had arrived just a month earlier. Reima then explained that this year's festival would have a different set of rules. He introduced a special currency that would be used during the event. This currency could be exchanged for academic points or even real money. Ikaruga commented that Reima seemed quite materialistic. On the other hand, Mari saw it as a great opportunity for the 35th test platoon, since they were in need of points. Oka disagreed, arguing that it would be better for them to focus on their usual missions instead of participating in the festival. She assumed Takeru would agree with her, but to her surprise, he declared that he would take the festival very seriously. Later, when Takeru and the others gathered in the 35th test platoon room, they were puzzled by his enthusiasm. Oka realized that the platoon really did need those points, and Ikaruga added that money was likely another reason. Takeru began outlining the need for a plan, a list of materials, and even an empty classroom to use. Ikaruga then explained to Oka and Mari that Takeru had been left with debt by his parents. By participating in the festival, he hoped to pay off part of that debt. Additionally, his younger sister had been living under difficult circumstances. After hearing this, Oka finally agreed to join the festival. Takeru encouraged everyone, confidently declaring that the 35th test platoon would win. Mari jokingly remarked that he sounded like a real leader. At that moment, Usagi was about to enter the room, but accidentally overheard Takeru's passionate speech about winning the festival. His words reminded her of what Kikyo had said, that this would be her final month at school. Not long after, Takeru wondered why Usagi had not shown up yet. Ikaruga explained that Usagi was receiving treatment for her eye. Since she served as the eyes of the 35th test platoon, her condition needed immediate attention. Meanwhile, Usagi felt confused hearing her friends speak so kindly about her. Mari mentioned that it was strange how Usagi disliked being called Yusa-chan, since it meant bunny, yet the ribbon she wore looked just like rabbit ears. Ikaruga pointed out that Usagi actually did not mind the nickname that much. Mari then said she would not hesitate to use it anymore. Suddenly, Usagi appeared and firmly warned them not to call her that. She explained that the ribbon she wore was a keepsake from her grandmother. The others quickly clarified that they had not meant to tease her. Takeru even commented that she looked cute wearing it. Hearing that, Usagi's face turned red. The others gave Takeru disapproving looks, but he insisted he was just being honest. Usagi then questioned why they were discussing something as important as the Witch Hunt Festival without her being present. Soon after, a male student entered the 35th Test Platoon room. He introduced himself as Ishida, the leader of the 23rd Test Platoon. He explained that he had come to propose an alliance between their platoons for the festival. He also admitted that his platoon was currently short on members. Takeru agreed, seeing it as a mutually beneficial arrangement. Later, Usagi walked alone down the school corridor. She could not understand why her platoon needed to cooperate with another group. With her time at school running out, she wanted to spend as much time as possible with her own teammates. Lost in thought, Usagi accidentally bumped into Reima. She immediately apologized for her carelessness. Reima greeted her calmly and gently patted her head, which made Usagi visibly nervous. He then told her that she no longer needed to stay there and did not have to keep pushing herself. Hearing those words, Usagi lowered her head, feeling shaken. Reima continued, saying that from that moment on, she would remain by his side. At that moment, Takeru was walking by while carrying some items. He suddenly noticed Usagi crying and immediately approached her. He recognized Reima as the head of the executive committee. Reima smiled and thanked Takeru for taking good care of Usagi, then introduced himself as her childhood friend. Before leaving, he asked Takeru to keep looking after Usagi, even if only for a short time because she meant a lot to him. Seeing Usagi unable to stop crying, Takeru gently told her to calm down and reassured her that she was not alone. Usagi asked for his help and Takeru promised that he would help her no matter what. Shortly after that, Usagi lost consciousness. At the same time, the student council secretary, Shizuoka, ran into Oka. She asked Oka to come with her because the student council president wanted to see her. As they walked together, they passed through a hidden room. Inside, the student council president, Nagharu, greeted Oka. Nagharu then handed Shizuoka an orange as a reward for successfully bringing Oka to her. She apologized for always making sudden requests, but Shizuoka did not mind at all, since she considered herself a spy anyway. Nagharu invited Oka to sit down, but Oka asked her to get straight to the point. Nagharu then requested Oka's help and began talking about an urban legend, the witch known as Mephistopheles, who was said to consume human hearts. She asked what Oka would do if the story turned out to be real. Oka thought the idea sounded ridiculous. Even so, Nagharu explained that Mephistopheles had already attacked her group. One of their companions had been possessed and lost control, leading to a tragic incident that left only Nagharu and Shizuoka unharmed. Hearing this, Oka was clearly shocked. Meanwhile, Usagi was lying unconscious in the school's student infirmary. Ikaruga figured that Usagi did not want to trouble anyone and was just pretending to be strong. She also mentioned that Usagi was both the weakest and the most stubborn among them. At the same time, Mary wondered what Oka was doing during such a critical moment. Ikaruga reminded Mary that it was time for her to attend her magic research duties. Mari was reluctant, but Ikaruga pointed out that she could be expelled if she skipped it. Takeru mentioned that he also had something to do, but Usagi's hand held onto him, stopping him from leaving. Ikaruga commented that Usagi must care deeply about Takeru. In the end, Takeru decided to stay by Usagi's side until she woke up. Before leaving, Mari warned him not to behave inappropriately while Usagi was asleep. Takeru firmly denied any such intention, and Mari responded with a strict warning that she would not tolerate any misconduct. That night, Usagi slowly opened her eyes. She seemed confused about why she was in the student infirmary. Takeru explained that she had fainted in the hallway earlier. Usagi asked if he had been staying with her the whole time, and Takeru admitted that he had promised to help her. She apologized for making him wait until late at night, and Takeru offered to walk her home. When Usagi realized she had been holding his hand, she quickly pulled away in surprise and apologized for doing so while she was unconscious. Takeru reassured her that it was not a big deal. Elsewhere, Nagharu asked Oka what she thought about Reima. Oka questioned why she was bringing him up. Nagharu explained that Reima seemed unusually capable. He had only transferred to the school a month ago, yet he had already organized the school festival and become the head of the executive committee. What made it even more suspicious was that his arrival coincided with the incident that had happened to Nagharu and her group. While walking home together, Takeru asked Usagi about her childhood friend Reima. Usagi replied that it was not something she felt comfortable talking about. Takeru grew concerned and told her that if she needed saving, he would do everything he could to help. He believed he could at least do something for her. Out of nowhere, Usagi asked Takeru to marry her. He was left speechless. Usagi quickly added that she knew it was an unreasonable request. She then revealed that Reima was actually her fiancé. She had been forced into the engagement with the Tenmyoji family to secure the future of the Saionji family, and she blamed herself for being unable to change her situation. With a sad expression, Usagi admitted that it would be her last month at school. Hearing all of that, Takeru asked Usagi to stay at his apartment for the night. That night, Usagi stayed over at Takeru's apartment. While she was taking a shower, her thoughts started to drift toward a future she hoped for with him. She imagined that if things worked out between them, she would not have to go through with the arranged marriage to Reima and could stay by Takeru's side instead. Her thoughts wandered even further, picturing what their life together might look like and wondering whether that kind of future would make him happy. After finishing her shower, Usagi stepped out wrapped in a towel, which caught Takeru off guard. He quickly offered to get her a change of clothes, but she refused, speaking in a way that confused him. Before he could fully respond, Usagi slipped and Takeru instinctively caught her. In the process, her towel came loose, leaving her flustered and embarrassed. Her face turned red as she asked him not to make the situation more awkward than it already was. She then leaned closer, unsure but clearly nervous about what she was doing. At that exact moment, Mari, Oka, and Ikaruga arrived at Takeru's apartment and opened the door without warning. They froze in shock at the scene in front of them. Takeru immediately tried to explain, but the situation only became more chaotic. Mari questioned him since she had already warned him before. Oka could not believe things had gotten that far, and Ikaruga jokingly wondered why she had not been included. The misunderstanding quickly escalated and Takeru ended up getting scolded by all of them at once. After things calmed down, Takeru explained Usagi's situation regarding her arranged marriage with Reima. Ikaruga commented that Reima might seem like a good match because of his wealthy background, but if Usagi did not like him, then marrying Takeru would make more sense. That statement surprised everyone in the room. Usagi then asked why they had all come to the apartment. Takeru admitted that he had invited them to discuss a strategy. The meeting focused on a plan to help Usagi. According to Takeru, they needed to earn more points so they could gain approval from the Saionji family. He wanted the 35th Test Platoon to improve their performance and prove themselves worthy in the eyes of Usagi's parents. Usagi felt conflicted and said she could not ask them to go that far for her, especially since she had nothing to offer in return. Ikaruga firmly reminded her that her problem was also their problem. Mari added that without Usagi, the 35th Test Platoon would feel incomplete. Oka admitted that even though she had her own reservations about the upcoming festival, losing Usagi would be far more difficult to accept. Takeru reassured her that he and everyone else would support her with everything they had. Hearing that, Usagi became emotional. Takeru reminded her that she was not alone because she had all of them by her side. Usagi broke into tears again, feeling like she had always been a burden, but Takeru quickly corrected her. He reminded her of all the times she had saved them, from their battle against the Einherjar to the tournament. Without her, they might not have made it this far. Even now, they still needed her, and that was why they were all there together. That night, they began putting together a plan for the Witch Hunt Festival. The next day, Ikaruga explained their strategy to the 23rd Test Platoon. Their idea for winning the festival was to host a cosplay-themed event. Everyone seemed excited about it. As part of the plan, Oka appeared in a stylish Cheongsam-inspired outfit. Mari wore a school-themed swimsuit. Lapi showed up in a simple, oversized shirt, and Usagi wore a bold costume that made her feel extremely self-conscious. She felt embarrassed, thinking the outfit was too revealing, while the boys reacted with loud excitement. Not long after, Takeru also appeared wearing a maid outfit, which added to the lively atmosphere. Before they changed back into their regular clothes, they decided to take photos together. Usagi still looked shy about her appearance, but her friends encouraged her to join in. She stepped closer, and together they posed, capturing the moment with a mix of playful and cheerful expressions. That day, Usagi put up a photo of the 35th Test Platoon on her locker, right next to a picture of her with her grandfather. It felt like she was quietly telling him that she was no longer alone. Meanwhile, Oka was walking around the school, still thinking about Reima. Not long after, she noticed some students painting decorations. It turned out they had been instructed by Reima to decorate the school for the witch hunting festival. At the same time, Reima told Takeru that he was looking forward to seeing the 35th Test Platoon participate in the festival, since it would likely become Usagi's final memory at the school. He believed Takeru was already aware of the plan for Usagi to marry him. Reima asked Takeru not to worry, saying that Usagi was someone precious to him. However, that was exactly what bothered Takeru. He pointed out that if Usagi truly mattered to Reima, then he should not refer to her as if she were just an object. Curious, Reima asked what kind of relationship Takeru had with Usagi. Takeru explained that she was an important teammate to him. Hearing that, Reima simply laughed and remarked that someone like Usagi, who carried a dark past involving her own family, did not deserve to have companions. That comment deeply upset Takeru, and he firmly warned Reima not to speak carelessly about Usagi. Reima insisted he was not lying and claimed that he would make Usagi happy. Takeru responded that he and the others would protect her. but Reima declared that he would take Usagi for himself using his own strength. Elsewhere, Oka asked Vlad to give her an aerial view so she could observe the school from above. From that perspective, she noticed something alarming. The festival decorations had been arranged to form a large-scale mind control spell. If activated, it could affect a huge number of people. Around the same time, Usagi ran into Reima in the school hallway. He was aware that she had not returned home the previous night and hinted at punishing her like before. This time, however, Usagi refused to follow his demands. In response, Reima acted harshly, reminding her of her past and insisting that she could not escape it. His words brought back painful memories, leaving Usagi visibly shaken. He then stated that he would always remain by her side. Shortly after, Usagi lost consciousness, and Reima grew curious about how her teammates would react. That same day, Shizuka informed Nagharu that she had confirmed Reima's true identity as Mephistopheles and planned to capture him. Nagharu apologized for having asked Shizuka to carry out the mission in secret. Shizuka replied that she was prepared to risk her life for Nagharu. Hearing that, Nagharu expressed regret, knowing she could not guarantee Shizuka's safety. In a sudden turn of events, Nagharu realized something was off and confronted a fake version of Shizuka, leading to a brief but decisive confrontation. Meanwhile, Takeru was searching for Usagi in the 35th test platoon room. Miri mentioned that Usagi might have gone shopping. When Moray asked what was going on, Takeru left immediately to continue searching, and Moray quickly followed him. At the same time, Shizuka approached Oka in front of Reima's room. Oka entered without hesitation, intending to detain him. Reima seemed confused, claiming he had done nothing wrong. Oka revealed that she knew he was actually Mephistopheles. Unexpectedly, the one beside her claimed that she herself was Mephistopheles. It was revealed that the real Shizuka had already been overpowered earlier, and Mephistopheles had taken her place. As Oka prepared to fight, Reima suddenly placed a spell on her forehead, leaving her unable to resist. In an instant, Mephistopheles transferred into Oka's body. Elsewhere, Mary noticed that her limiter Gleipnir seemed to have been deactivated, meaning she could use magic again. She began to question what was really happening. Not long after, Nagharu contacted Takeru. Although she had been injured in the earlier encounter, her protective gear had prevented serious harm, even if the impact still hurt. She informed Takeru that Oka was in danger and asked for his help. At that moment, Mephistopheles had already taken control of Oka's body. She commented that controlling a Relic Eater contractor like Oka was not easy, as Oka's consciousness still lingered within, making it feel like sharing one body with another personality. Realizing the situation was unstable, Mephistopheles decided to accelerate her plan. Reima, confused, pointed out that this was not what they had agreed upon. He had even transferred schools to help carry out her plan, believing her promise that he would gain control over the school and the Inquisitors. However, Mephistopheles made it clear that she was in control, reminding him that she could eliminate him at any time if she chose. She had only spared him because of the valuable power he possessed as the successor of the Tenmyoji lineage. Mephistopheles made it clear that without her, Reima would still be stuck in that mediocre school and would never have become the head of the executive committee. She released him, calling him a pitiful man, and told him not to worry because the other students were still alive. Once everything was over, she assured him that the school would belong to him. With that, Mephistopheles immediately set her plan for revenge into motion. Meanwhile, Nagharu explained to Takeru that Mephistopheles' true goal was to reclaim her original body, which had been sealed within the school. She suspected that Mephistopheles intended to use magic to turn the students into her servants. Takeru was confused as to why Nagharu had involved Oka in all of this, and at that moment, Nagharu asked him to save her. Takeru refused to simply follow Nagharu's request, making it clear that he would only act to protect his own comrades. Nagharu understood his stance and expressed her hope that he would return safely. Takeru then called Lapis to locate Oka and Usagi. Oka's position could not be detected, but Usagi was found inside the church. Without wasting time, Takeru asked Marie for help in dispelling the magic surrounding the area. At that moment, Usagi lay unconscious inside the church. Memories from her childhood resurfaced. When she was younger, her older brother had been playing with a rifle. She had warned him not to treat it carelessly, but he ignored her. Tragically, the weapon discharged by accident, and he lost his life. At the funeral, Reima approached Usagi and cruelly blamed her for what had happened, even questioning how it felt to carry such guilt. From that day on, he began treating her as if she belonged to him. When Usagi opened her eyes in the present, she saw Reima looming over her. Startled, she asked what he intended to do. Reima spoke as if they were about to celebrate a honeymoon, commenting on her appearance and referring to the moment as a kind of twisted wedding. Usagi resisted, but Reima responded harshly, clearly taking satisfaction in her fear. He leaned in and muttered that even if she was useless, he would not simply discard her. Feeling powerless, Usagi caught sight of a photo of the 35th Test Platoon. She reached out toward it, wishing with all her heart to return to her friends. In her mind, she could hear them calling her back. She remembered Takeru's words, that she would never be alone again. Gathering her courage, Usagi fought back, breaking free from Reima's control. Reima staggered and Usagi declared that she would no longer obey him. Enraged, Reima prepared to strike again, and fear began to creep back into her heart. Just then, Takeru appeared and stepped in to protect her. The moment she saw him, Usagi rushed forward and clung to him, admitting how scared she had been. Takeru gently reassured her, patting her head and asking her to assist Mari. For anything else, he told her to check with Ikaruga, since they were running out of time. He made it clear that he would handle Reima himself. Usagi asked Takeru to promise that he would defeat Reima, and in return, she asked for the same comforting gesture once everything was over. With that, she quickly headed toward Mari's location. Reima, furious, called out to her, but Takeru immediately stepped in front of him, raising his sword and declaring that he would keep his promise to fight. Elsewhere, Ikaruga handed Usagi her grandfather's rifle, explaining that it was better suited for the current mission. She also gave Usagi 2 special bullets meant for Mephistopheles. Even though Mephistopheles' spirit could be destroyed, Usagi needed to avoid critical areas, since the body being used did not belong to her. At the same time, Mary continued working to dispel the magic enveloping the school. Suddenly, Oka approached her, expressing concern. Mary simply laughed it off, recognizing that something felt off, as Oka would never act that way. Mephistopheles, still controlling Oka's body, smiled and prepared to attack. Fortunately, Usagi arrived just in time and knocked Mephistopheles to the ground. Reacting quickly, Mephistopheles placed a spell tag on Usagi's forehead before making her escape. Usagi tried to take aim, but suddenly a group of male students called out to her and began approaching in an unsettling manner. Caught off guard, Usagi tried to get away, confused and frustrated that they could not show basic respect toward her as a person. At that time, Takeru managed to defeat Reima. However, he did not go as far as killing him, since Usagi had never asked him to do so, and taking Reima's life would not have meant anything anyway. Meanwhile, Marie was close to finishing her task, but suddenly Mephistopheles shot her in the arm. Not long after, Takeru arrived and confronted Mephistopheles. He urged her to return Oka as soon as possible. Unexpectedly, Mephistopheles used Oka's Relic Eater. When she fired at Takeru, his form reverted back to normal. Mephistopheles explained that Oka's Relic Eater had the ability to pierce through any magic as long as its mechanism was understood. Mephistopheles continued her attack, but Takeru refused to give up even without relying on his magical weapon. Knowing that Usagi would return soon, Mephistopheles deliberately set up a test. When Usagi arrived, she found herself confused, unable to tell whether Mephistopheles was inside Oka or Takeru. Takeru suggested that if she was unsure, she should shoot him first and then Oka, since neither of them would die from it. Usagi aimed her weapon at Oka, but suddenly Mephistopheles became unable to move. The real Oka spoke up, refusing to let Mephistopheles tarnish her name. At that moment, Oka asked Usagi to fire. As soon as Usagi did, Mephistopheles was forced out of Oka's body. Sagetsu then pulled the trigger once more and successfully eliminated Mephistopheles. After everything was over, Usagi felt completely exhausted. Takeru then tried to wake Oka, who had fallen unconscious. Usagi told him to stay calm and suggested that he check her condition and help her regain consciousness. In her flustered state, she ended up saying something slightly embarrassing without realizing it. Meanwhile, Marie successfully completed her task of dispelling the magic. She rushed over to Oka and urged her not to just collapse there, since she would no longer have anyone to tease. Shortly after, Ikaruga arrived and immediately checked Oka's pulse. Thankfully, it was still there. According to Ikaruga, it was only natural for Oka to pass out after being hit by that shot. In a faint voice, Oka assured everyone that she was fine. Hearing that, her friends felt a huge sense of relief. During the festival, students who visited the 35th Test Platoon's booth suddenly ran away before even paying. Ikaruga could not believe they were still struggling to attract visitors. Even though their appearances had changed, their personalities were still causing problems. She then informed Takeru that Usagi was looking for him. Takeru quickly went to meet her and was surprised by her appearance, which seemed more revealing than usual. Usagi's face turned red as she tried to hold back her embarrassment, explaining that it was all Ikaruga's doing. Takeru quickly helped cover her up to make her more comfortable. Usagi apologized for the situation, while Takeru looked just as flustered, unsure of where to look. Both of them blushed and avoided eye contact. Usagi then shared that, thanks to Takeru, her arranged marriage had been called off, and she was allowed to continue attending school. Takeru felt genuinely happy hearing that and gently patted her on the head. Usagi became even more embarrassed by his kind gesture. Meanwhile, Hayato obtained some information about Ikaruga and reported it to Sugetsu. Sugetsu asked if he was certain, and although it was not fully confirmed, Hayato believed the information was reliable. Sogetsu then instructed Hayato to bring Ikaruga to him as they needed to discuss matters related to her family. That day, Ikaruga went to meet Sogetsu in his office. He handed her a file and asked what she thought about its contents. Ikaruga admitted that she did not know anything about it. Sogetsu then explained that the photos inside the file had been taken by his spies within an alchemy company. The images showed cells from a dark elf known as Lost Matrix. According to him, alchemists were trying to turn it into a weapon. Ikaruga dismissed the idea as foolish, pointing out that no one had ever succeeded in cloning legendary creatures like dark elves or dragons, and that there were no remaining cells left to study. Sogetsu added that the Lost Matrix, even in its intact state, had already disappeared 4 years ago. He also revealed that he had accepted Ikaruga into the school because she was one of the Tsujanami. She was a creation of brilliant researchers in alchemy, essentially an artificial intelligence in human form. Sogetsu asked if there was anything else she remembered. Ikaruga replied that she had already told him everything she knew about alchemy. Seeing her reaction, Hayato suspected that she might actually know more than she was letting on. He suggested capturing her and forcing her to reveal the location of the Lost Matrix. However, Sogetsu found that approach crude and uninteresting. He preferred to observe and wait, believing that the more options they had to counter alchemy, the better. Hayato then asked what Sogetsu was planning, whether he intended to negotiate, threaten, or even start a war. Sogetsu simply smiled, saying that when the time came, all those options would feel the same. Meanwhile, Ikaruga quietly reflected on the fact that 4 years had already passed before contacting someone. Later that day, the students checked the points earned by each platoon. As usual, the 35th test platoon ranked at the bottom. Takeru mentioned to Usagi that only a few platoons remained. Mary casually pointed out that the 35th test platoon was still stuck in last place. Usagi did not appreciate the comment and snapped back, saying that Mare seemed to lack both responsibility and self-awareness, even though she was part of the same platoon. Oka acknowledged that their platoon was indeed struggling. Not long after, Ikaruga approached them and asked Takeru if he was ready to face reality. She made it clear that she would not rely on him the way others did, especially not with comforting words like asking to share her burden. That remark irritated Oka, Mare, and Usagi. Takeru found it strange that Ikaruga was teasing them at a time like this, especially when their low score was a much bigger issue. Ikaruga then asked if she should hack into the school's system to find a high-difficulty mission, but Usagi immediately shut that idea down. The group later gathered in the 35th test platoon room. Usagi pointed out that most of the difficult missions had probably already been taken by other platoons, leaving only risky assignments near the border. Mari argued that they might be underestimating the dangers of the slum areas. Oka added that every year, new platoons were sent there, only to be quickly defeated. Mary then suggested that their only option might be searching for a giant creature called Mossy in the sewer system, though Oka dismissed the idea as unrealistic. Meanwhile, Takeru and Ikaruga sat together drinking tea. Takeru admitted that their situation seemed pretty bad. Ikaruga agreed, noting that nothing ever improved and that the 35th test platoon always remained the weakest. She then commented on how Takeru's earlier words about staying by her side sounded almost like something a husband would say to his wife. Takeru was confused as to why she was still teasing him in a moment like this. Shortly after Ikaruga left the room, she expressed her hope that they could continue fighting together even without her. Before leaving, she even said goodbye, which felt unusually final. Takeru suddenly recalled the first time he met Ikaruga. Back then, he had been lying on the ground after a battle. Ikaruga had wondered why he did not use his sword. Takeru explained that using a weapon against an unarmed opponent would damage his sense of honor. That answer intrigued Ikaruga, and she admitted that she liked him because of it. Back in the present, Usagi noticed that Takeru seemed lost in thought. He admitted that it felt strange because Ikaruga rarely said goodbye like that. Usagi also realized that something about Ikaruga's behavior that day felt different than usual. One day, Haunted stopped by the research room and told Tsujanami Izuka that her sad expression looked strangely elegant. Izuka then asked what sadness actually meant. Haunted described sadness as something that made a person look like a woman who had been hurt and left behind, to the point that it made him want to hold her. Izuka calmly said that if he wanted to hug her, he could go ahead. However, Haunted refused. He then wondered whether all members of the Tsujanami family were like Izuka and asked why she did not try to enjoy life like other people. For Izuka, the most interesting thing in her life was research itself. Haunted asked if she had succeeded in reviving an elf, but it turned out she had failed, and even the revival of a dark elf was still far from being achieved. Curious, Haunted questioned why she was so obsessed with dark elves. He believed she must be driven by strong hatred, but Izuka denied it. Haunted then asked why she had betrayed alchemy and joined Valhalla instead. According to Izuka, alchemy was nothing more than a company where she could only create what they wanted. Haunted realized that Izuka had killed the researchers not out of revenge, but purely for practical reasons. This frustrated him because in his view, taking a life should come from something meaningful, like hatred, love, or anger. Otherwise, the death would feel pointless. From that, Haunted concluded that witches and researchers were not meant to coexist. Even so, they still needed each other. Isoka promised that she would fulfill her goal of bringing the dark elf back to life. Suddenly, Isoka felt a sharp headache. Someone had leaked information about the stolen Lost Matrix. She immediately recognized the culprit. It was her own younger sister, Ikaruoka. Meanwhile, Takeru and the others were tracking Ikaruoka, but she suddenly disappeared. It seemed she had entered the underground sewer system. Takeru believed that if Ikaruoka was heading toward the border, they could not just let her go alone. Mari mentioned that she remembered the underground map. Usagi wondered how they would figure out Ikaruoka's exact route. Not long after, Lapis arrived and offered her help. At the same time, Ikaruga was moving through the underground tunnels while calling Izuka. She said she intended to return the Lost Matrix and asked Izuka to keep her promise to show her research. Unfortunately, even if Ikaruga returned, the original research facility was already gone. Still, she did not mind, since her only interest was the revival of the elf. Izuka then asked why Ikaruga had stolen it 4 years ago. She pointed out that if she had still been part of the alchemy company back then, Ikaruga might have been executed. Izuka demanded to know Ikaruoga's true goal, but Ikaruoga replied that the conversation was pointless, since Izuka only cared about the Lost Matrix. Izuka made it clear that she would not allow Ikaruga to interfere with her again. Not long after, 2 mercenaries blocked Ikaruoga's path. At the same time, Takeru and the others were also attacked by mercenaries. Lapis insisted that the location she provided was correct, but they did not expect to run into a mafia group. Mari had said the route was safe, but she had last used it 6 months earlier. As they ran to avoid gunfire, Mari suddenly fell. Takeru turned back to help her. Soon after, they reached Ikaruoga's location. She was under attack by the mercenaries, and seeing this, Takeru and Oka stepped in to help. Takeru carried Ikaruoga to a safer place. Ikaruoga was surprised that Takeru and the others had followed her. She warned that it would be impossible for them to fight against armed men like that. Oka also urged Takeru to take Ikaruoga and leave. Moments later, a missile was launched and nearly hit them. Takeru was injured by the blast. He told Ikaruga to stay where she was while he went to find the others, since their communication had been cut off. However, his body had become too weak after the attack. Ikaruga decided to take him with her. Takeru tried to refuse, but she insisted while he continued to worry about his friends. Ikaruga then contacted Izuka and reported that their plan had been slightly disrupted. Izuka suspected it might be a trick. Ikaruga explained that the people involved were a school test platoon she was familiar with. Izuka was not convinced. Ikaruga warned that if any member of the platoon was killed, she would not hand over the Lost Matrix. Elsewhere, Suzaku informed Sogetsu that the incident was not caused by the alchemy company, but by the 5th research facility. She also stated that research on elves had never been approved by the alchemy company. Sogetsu demanded accountability from Suzaku as the party in charge. Suzaku acknowledged this and, as an apology, offered 150 units of the latest Dragoon model free of charge. She hoped they would help Sogetsu destroy the 5th research facility. Additionally, Suzaku expressed that the alchemy side still wished to continue doing business with the school. After that, Sogetsu ordered Hayato to gather witch hunters and knights at the small gate to prepare for a limited-scale battle. At the same time, Usagi, Oka, and Mare were captured by Izuka. The 3 of them had been thoroughly examined, which left Usagi feeling deeply upset, as she believed she could no longer see herself as a proper bride in the future. Mari could not believe how sensitive Usagi was about the situation. Oka, on the other hand, found it strange considering Mari had once sold information in the border region, and she questioned what the real goal of the alchemy organization actually was. Mare explained that there had been rumors claiming that alchemy aimed to revive elves. Oka immediately dismissed the idea as impossible. Mare agreed, saying that reviving elves was indeed unrealistic. If it were truly possible, alchemy would have already taken control of the world, so it was nothing more than a fantasy. Suddenly, Izuka approached them and stated that reviving elves was not just a fantasy. They were all shocked to see a girl who looked so much like Ikaruga. Izuka then introduced herself as Ikaruga's younger sister, which surprised them even more. She admitted that she never expected a researcher like Ikaruga to get along with ordinary people. Izuka questioned whether they were truly Ikaruoga's friends or if they were simply being used by her. Usagi firmly stated that she was Ikaruoga's friend and believed she understood Ikaruoga better than Izuka did. However, Izuka argued that Ikaruoga was nothing more than a tool driven by instinct for research, someone who would not show interest unless something stood out to her. Usagi asked Izuka not to compare herself to Ikaruoga in such a way. The Tsujanami sisters had been created for the sole purpose of research. and those deemed useless would be discarded. When they were younger, Izuka and Ikaruga once excitedly approached the researchers, proudly reporting their success in transplanting a human brain into a griffin. They had also developed a gas capable of causing people to turn against each other, hoping to receive praise for their achievements. One day, Ikaruga asked Izuka what a mother was. Izuka explained that a mother was simply a provider of egg cells. She found it odd that Ikaruga would ask such a question and became curious about the book Ikaruga was reading. Ikaruga said it was a storybook filled with moral lessons. Hearing that, Izuka told her to throw it away. Ikaruga then asked about the meaning of family and friendship. Izuka admitted she did not know, as those topics were outside her area of expertise. To Ikaruga, the place they lived in felt far too small. At one point, Ikaruga attempted to revive a wood elf that had no mana, but the experiment failed. This made her think that she might soon be discarded as well. Izuka scolded her for recklessly creating an elf, worrying it would put both of them at risk of being removed from the research program. Ikaruga had already seen other researchers being cast aside for being considered useless. While reflecting on this, Ikaruga noticed a small elf smiling at her. To her surprise, the elf called her Mama. Ikaruga then gave the elf the name Kanaria, which made the little elf incredibly happy. That night, Ikaruga prepared to leave the facility. Izuka woke up and tried to stop her, saying they still needed each other. Ikaruga invited Izuka to escape with her, but Izuka refused, as she only wanted to continue their research together. Suddenly, an emergency alert was issued regarding the disappearance of the Lost Matrix. Ikaruga quickly left, taking the Lost Matrix with her. She intended to bring Kanaria along, but she could not find her in her usual place. At that time, Ikaruga also shared her past with Takeru. She admitted that she had deliberately enrolled in the school to keep the Lost Matrix away from the alchemy organization, knowing they would not attack Inquisitors. This was the first time Takeru learned that Ikaruga was actually an artificial human. Takeru asked why she had gone alone to the border and why she used the Lost Matrix to negotiate with the alchemy side. He wanted to know her true objective. Ikaruga responded by asking what he would do if he found out, even if her goal turned out to be something bad. Takeru answered that he would stop her with everything he had. Then, Ikaruga admitted that she felt at ease when she was with Takeru. She acted in a way that caught him completely off guard, making him extremely flustered. Ikaruga believed that this might be their last meeting, and she simply wanted to express her feelings and curiosity about human connection in her own way. Takeru's face turned completely panicked when Ikaruga asked to sleep with him. Ikaruga did not really understand love or romantic feelings, but she felt curious about physical intimacy. Takeru believed that something like that should never be done carelessly. Ikaruga insisted that she was not being careless, and that if it was with Takeru, then it should be fine. She asked him to just accept her, mentioning that she knew he had never been with anyone before. Ikaruga also admitted that she had no experience either, and in her mind, sharing that moment together felt like a fitting way to mark their parting. Takeru did not understand what kind of parting she was talking about. Not long after, the alchemy faction arrived to take Ikaruga away. With a heavy heart, she put aside her request. Instead, she leaned in and kissed Takeru, while secretly injecting a sedative into his body. After that, she asked him not to follow her. Takeru was completely unable to move and could only watch as Ikaruga hurried away. Outside, Ikaruga met with Izuka and asked whether Izuka could truly keep her promise. Izuka replied that everything depended on Ikaruga's actions. In response, Ikaruga swore that she would devote every part of herself to destroying Izuka's life until her very last breath. Meanwhile, the alchemy faction released Oka, Mari, and Usagi. They were confused about why they had been freed so suddenly after being captured. Usagi wanted to go and save Ikaruga, believing that Ikaruga must have known about their capture and had exchanged the Lost Matrix to secure their release. Oka tried to stop her, questioning whether Usagi could still trust Ikaruga after learning about her past. However, Usagi believed that Ikaruga's past and those experiments had nothing to do with her. For her, the time they spent together in the 35th Test Platoon was enough. She said that if Ikaruga was in danger, then they had to help her. And if Ikaruga ended up doing something wrong, Usagi would confront her directly. Through tears, Usagi declared that no matter what, she wanted to bring Ikaruga back so they could all be together again. Hearing that, Oka accepted Usagi's decision, and Mari also agreed to go with them. Suddenly, a Dragoon unit belonging to the Inquisitors passed by. Not long after, a limousine carrying Sogetsu and Hayato stopped in front of them. Sogetsu asked what they were doing there, and Oka questioned what was going on. Sogetsu calmly stated that it was obvious, they were heading into battle. He then asked about Takeru and Ikaruga's whereabouts, but Oka explained that she did not know since they had been separated earlier. Hayato told them to choose their weapons because things outside were extremely dangerous. Sogetsu also gave them permission to use relic eaters. At the same time, Takeru was struggling to move his body. He told Lapis that he wanted to save his comrades. No matter what Takeru wished for, Lapis was determined to stand by his side and help him achieve it with all her strength. She then activated Takeru's Witch Hunter mode. Takeru fought through several dragoons that stood in his way. After that, he asked Lapis where Ikaruga was and where the elf research facility might be. Lapis said she sensed a strong concentration of anti-magic energy at the top of a tower, so it was likely they were there. After finishing the fight, Takeru asked Lapis if she could fly. Lapis replied that she did not have wings, so she could not truly fly, but she could still float. Takeru commented that she was amazing, which made Lapis feel embarrassed as she asked him not to praise her like that. Takeru had not expected that Lapis had such a cute side. Without waiting for further instructions, Lapis lifted Takeru and carried him upward. At that moment, a fierce battle was unfolding. Sugetsu remarked that it had been a long time since he had experienced the atmosphere of war. The scent of the battlefield, the tension in the air. He stated that a true leader should stand on the front lines and be the last one to fall. The battle continued as Sugetsu joined in, firing his inessentious attacks and quickly neutralizing the enemy dragoons. Elsewhere, Takeru was also fighting against enemy dragoons when Oka suddenly arrived to help him. Takeru was surprised to see her there, just as Oka was surprised to find him in that place. Usagi then contacted Takeru, asking if he was okay. She and Mari said they would support them from the top of the wall. Oka said that if the Inquisitors found out Ikaruga was connected to the elf research, there was a very high chance she would be arrested on the spot. Before that could happen, they needed to find Ikaruga's whereabouts. Takeru would take the front line, and he asked Oka to handle any enemies behind him. He told Usagi to provide cover from a distance and asked Mari to stay close and protect Usagi. Without wasting any time, they immediately began their mission. Meanwhile, Izuka went to confront Ikaruga. She admitted that every time she saw Ikaruga, she was reminded of the resentment she had felt that day. She believed that if Ikaruga had not run away with the Lost Matrix, she would have achieved far greater progress by now. Izuka questioned why Ikaruga had betrayed her. However, Ikaruga did not see it as betrayal. She explained that she simply wanted to leave and explore the world outside, inspired by a book she once read. To her, the outside world was full of fascinating things. Among those discoveries, she found something she valued deeply: youth. Izuka could not understand how something so unclear could make Ikaruga choose to leave, especially when Izuka herself had endured so much. Her expressions had been restricted, and even her brain would ache whenever she experienced emotions considered unnecessary. It turned out her superiors had modified her to be that way. Ikaruga was shocked, questioning how that could happen when Izuka had always been talented and obedient. In frustration, Izuka threw the book and blamed everything on Ikaruga. She insisted that none of it mattered. If the elf resurrection succeeded, Valhalla would accept her, and she would finally be freed from the suffering of alchemy. Izuka demanded that Ikaruga hand over the Lost Matrix immediately. Ikaruga explained that she had returned for two reasons: to stop the elf resurrection and to free Izuka from alchemy. Izuka laughed at what she considered an unrealistic idea. Ikaruga admitted she regretted not taking Izuka with her 4 years ago. She believed that if Izuka had run away with her, the elf research would have been stopped. Izuka grew irritated, but Ikaruga insisted she was telling the truth. Even though the Lost Matrix had disappeared, Izuka was still there, which was why the research continued. Ikaruga invited Izuka to come with her, but Izuka pushed her away, saying she no longer needed her and now saw her as an enemy. She even planned to destroy the world just to save herself. Ikaruga replied that if the world were destroyed, her home would be gone too, and Izuka would still remain her enemy. Suddenly, Izuka shot Ikaruga in the thigh and demanded the Lost Matrix again. Ikaruga revealed that the self-elf had been right in front of her all along. She had fused the Philosopher's Stone with her own body, explaining that her knowledge had created something that once existed only in stories: nanomachines. Izuka was shocked and called it impossible, but Ikaruga dismissed that, saying a scientist should never use the word impossible. Izuka then asked if Ikaruga had used nanomachines to merge them with her own DNA. At that moment, Ikaruga's form had completely transformed into an elf. Izuka laughed and said that no matter what, Ikaruga was still a Tsujanami. Ikaruga admitted it and added that mana was truly incredible, as even a small amount could create antimatter. She declared her intention to destroy every part of the alchemy organization and save Izuka. Izuka tried to stop her, complaining about the pain in her head. Ikaruga reassured her not to worry, promising to fix everything. However, Izuka continued blaming Ikaruga for leaving and taking away what she considered her home. As Ikaruga slowly approached, Izuka suddenly began to shed tears without realizing it. At that moment, Haunted appeared in front of Ikaruga. He seemed delighted to see Izuka in such a vulnerable state, questioning why she had been hiding her emotions from him all this time. Elsewhere, Oka was busy fighting off the dragoons trying to block Takeru. She criticized Vlad for the weakness of his shots. Vlad replied that his mana was nearly depleted and suggested that if Oka wanted more power, she should form a contract with him. At the same time, Takeru asked Lapis how much mana they had left. Lapis answered that they only had about 10 minutes before reaching their limit. Takeru remained confident that he and his team could still save Ikaruga. He then asked Usagi about her remaining bullets, and she confirmed she still had some. Marie quietly wondered whether that would be enough. At the same time, Ikaruga could not bear to watch as Haunted fatally attacked Izuka. Haunted laughed with satisfaction, saying that Izuka's expression of despair was beautiful. Overcome with anger, Ikaruga immediately attacked him, and not long after, a massive explosion erupted at the top of the tower. Ikaruga supported Izuka's body and promised she would heal her. As she returned to her original form, Izuka told her to give up. She revealed that Kanaria was still alive in Valhalla and asked Ikaruga to keep living. Shortly after Izuka passed away, Ikaruga was overwhelmed with grief and held her tightly. Not long after, Haunted approached again. He praised Ikaruga's abilities and invited her to join him. He mentioned that Izuka had taught him how to awaken elves and develop dragoons. According to him, Izuka was no longer needed, and now it was Ikaruga's turn. Furious, Ikaruga fired at him. Haunted simply remarked that Izuka had left behind a parting gift. A massive dragon appeared right after the explosion at the tower. Takeru immediately told Lapis to focus her power on his legs, since he was about to jump. Without hesitation, he leaped into the air and managed to catch Ikaruga's body. He felt a wave of relief when he realized she was still alive. Takeru then asked Lapis to analyze the dragoon. Based on its shape and how it used mana, it seemed the dragon was a wyvern. In a one-on-one fight, their chances of winning were only about 0.4%. Ikaruga bluntly commented that Takeru's relic eater was useless. Takeru quickly told her not to say things like that. According to Ikaruga, if it were a real dragon, they would not stand a chance. However, since the dragoon in the tower was just a machine, it should still be possible to destroy it. At the same time, Sogetsu observed the enormous dragon from a distance. It had been a long time since he had seen a dragoon that powerful. The dragon unleashed flames from its mouth, scorching the city below. Usagi and Marie ran to avoid its attacks. Meanwhile, Oka and Takeru worked together to take it down. As Oka fired at the dragon, Takeru leaped forward and launched his own attack. Elsewhere, Usagi prepared to fire her anti-ballistic electric cannon. Ikaruga advised her to aim for the dragon's spine to limit its movement. She also reminded Usagi that she could only fire 5 consecutive shots. Usagi focused carefully on the dragon's spine, but her first shot missed. Ikaruga then told her to reload, since Takeru was currently distracting the dragon. Usagi fired again, but the second shot also failed to hit. Takeru gathered all his strength and continued attacking the dragon. He told Usagi that he was counting on her. Hearing that made Usagi more confident, and she steadied herself before firing again. This time, her shot hit the target. Takeru even praised her, but unexpectedly, the dragon was still able to move and retaliate against him. Ikaruga realized that a single hit was not enough to stop it. The dragon closed in, preparing to strike Takeru, but Oka arrived just in time and attacked it. However, she was knocked back by the dragon's counterattack. Enraged, Takeru rushed forward and stabbed the dragon, but Lapis warned him that his mana was almost depleted. Takeru could not believe he might lose again. At that moment, Mairi stepped in and transferred all of her mana to him. With renewed energy, Takeru thrust forward using the unicorn spear. He then asked Lapis to pour all remaining mana into his final attack. With everything he had, Takeru unleashed a powerful sword technique he called Dragon Rain. With a single decisive slash, the dragon collapsed instantly. Takeru smiled faintly, completely drained of energy, and soon lost consciousness. Ikaruga quickly ran over to help him. After the battle ended, Mairi proudly showed off her heroic actions earlier in front of Usagi and Oka. Both of them looked annoyed as they listened to her. As usual, the three of them ended up teasing each other again. Takeru could not help but smile as he watched their antics, before walking over to Ikaruga. Ikaruga said that she had already found a reason to fight. Takeru gently patted her head and told her she could rely on him, since the 35th Test Platoon was there for her. Ikaruga pointed out that not every girl liked having her head patted. Takeru immediately stopped and apologized, but surprisingly, she asked him to do it again. He followed her request. As he looked at her, Takeru noticed how downcast her expression was. He realized that she did not like what he said about sharing burdens, but he still told her he was ready to share her tears as well. Ikaruga insisted that she was not crying. Takeru simply remarked that she could be pretty stubborn. That day, Ikaruga informed her teammates about an undercover mission. The suspect they had captured had confessed that there would be an illegal transaction involving magical relics that very night. Their assignment was to go undercover and catch whoever was involved. It was a high-level mission, which meant a lot of points were at stake. Oka told everyone to get ready immediately. However, Ikaruga remarked that even though she had shared the mission details, she believed it would be impossible for them to pull it off. Oka pushed back, asking Ikaruga not to underestimate her, since she had handled undercover missions many times before. Surprisingly, Ikaruga suggested that Oka should not participate in this one. Hearing that only made Oka feel underestimated, which strengthened her determination to join. Ikaruga then stated that she would not stop her. The transaction was set to take place at a nightclub, and Oka was shocked to learn that her undercover role required her to act as a hostess. Meanwhile, Usagi and Mari seemed to enjoy their roles and carried them out cheerfully. Some overly persistent male customers asked them to order alcoholic drinks, but Usagi chose orange juice instead. The men began to suspect that Usagi and Mari were pretending to be younger than they were. One of them tried to strike up a conversation with Oka, but she responded coldly. Usagi quietly reminded Oka not to act too stiff, or she might draw suspicion. Oka felt frustrated with herself for letting Ikaruga's words get to her earlier. Now she had to play along with this uncomfortable role and had no choice but to see the mission through. At one point, a man approached her and behaved inappropriately, which made Oka snap at him. The man grew irritated, but Oka firmly scolded him for his behavior. Takeru, who was undercover as a bartender, quickly stepped in, apologized to the man, and explained that it was Oka's first day on the job. Unlike Oka, Takeru handled his role smoothly. He poured drinks, cleaned up broken glass, and blended in naturally. After that, he called over a friend named Sira. Watching him, Usagi and Mari commented that Takeru seemed surprisingly skilled at this kind of work. Takeru then guided Sarah to the table where their target was sitting and signaled the others to keep an eye on him. Oka sat beside the target, who was heavily intoxicated. The man mentioned that it was Sarah's birthday and said he wanted to give her a gift. As he reached into his pocket, he accidentally made Oka uncomfortable again, which caused her to react loudly and strike him in the heat of the moment. The gift box flew out of his hand, and Oka, acting on instinct, fired at it. The sudden action shocked everyone in the club. Takeru immediately called for support, and the team surrounded the man, suspecting him of being involved in the illegal magical relic deal. However, when they checked the box, it turned out to contain nothing more than a regular game console. The man explained that it was simply the gift Sarah had wanted. Not long after, another man appeared holding a ring and ran off in panic after noticing the Inquisitors present. Mari suspected that this second man was the real culprit. Without hesitation, Takeru and the others chased him down and managed to capture him. Later that night, Oka apologized to the team for messing up the mission. Takeru did not make a big deal out of it, and Usagi understood, saying that it was only natural for Oka to react strongly in that situation. Mari added that Oka should not have acted so suddenly. Ikaruga reminded them that if they ended up being punished, it would affect their points. After examining the ring, they discovered that it was made from low-grade magic-absorbing material. It did not even have a proper seal, and its magic had not been used at all. The power inside it was so weak that they could not even identify its type. Mari concluded that it was not a valuable magical relic. Usagi was disappointed to learn that it was only an F-rank item, earning them just 5 points. Takeru pointed out that since they had investigated the case on their own, their points would be doubled, so even if they were penalized, they would still come out ahead. Oka wondered if it was still risky if their points were reduced. Ikaruga casually remarked that none of this would have been an issue if Oka had not lost her temper earlier. Oka apologized again, but Ikaruga responded that an apology would not change what had already happened and added that Oka could be a bit immature at times. Ikaruga then suggested that they should find out what the ring actually did before turning it in, since testing it seemed like their only option. Oka tried to stop her, but Ikaruga insisted it would be fine, pointing out that the suspect had intended to give it to someone he liked. She guessed that the ring's effect might simply make the wearer develop strong feelings for someone. Mari advised against testing it, but Ikaruga brushed it off, joking that at worst it might just make her act a little strange. Hearing that, Usagi and Mari quickly grabbed the ring from her. The two of them began arguing over it, which made Oka question their behavior. As Oka reached out to take the ring, it suddenly slipped from their hands and flew toward Takeru. He tried to catch it, but it accidentally slipped onto his finger instead. Unexpectedly, the people around him started being affected by it. Usagi began moving closer to Takeru, acting completely out of character. She suddenly pushed him down and pinned him in place. Drawn in by his scent, she leaned in very close, making Takeru panic as he struggled to break free. Takeru then noticed Mari, who looked furious after seeing what was happening. She hit him on the head in frustration. Confused, Takeru wondered if Mari had also been affected by the ring he was wearing. Mari questioned whether Takeru disliked her because of her small chest. Assuming that he preferred girls with a bigger figure, she admitted feeling hurt because people often made fun of her for it, and she almost tried to prove herself right then and there. Takeru quickly stopped her, telling her not to do anything like that. Mari became even more upset, thinking Takeru was not interested in her at all. Takeru tried to run away, but Oka suddenly pushed him down and pinned him as well. She asked why he looked so flustered. Acting strangely, she got far too close to him, making Takeru even more desperate to get away. He could not believe he was surrounded by people acting so wildly, some laughing and others crying. Then he saw Lapis standing in front of him. He felt relieved, thinking she would not be affected since she was a relic eater. However, her face was flushed and she looked shy in a way he had never seen before. Ikaruga finally realized that the ring was causing everyone to act intoxicated. Takeru felt a brief sense of relief, seeing that Ikaruga still seemed aware. But then she approached him and admitted that she might also be affected. She leaned in as if she was about to kiss him, but suddenly turned away and got sick right in front of him. The next day, the 35th Test Platoon was assigned a mission at the beach. Strangely, the place had been stuck in a constant summer ever since it opened. Usagi suspected that a magical relic or a witch might be involved. Mari said she could understand if it was just weather manipulation, but changing an entire season would be nearly impossible, even for a high-level witch. She wondered if it was nothing more than a rumor. Ikaruga pointed out that if it were true, it would be a serious issue. She could not understand why anyone would want to extend a season she disliked so much. Takeru suggested they would find out once they got there, so they might as well enjoy the trip since they had already come all this way. When they arrived, it was clear that the beach really was experiencing endless summer. Oka suggested they start by checking the shoreline. Mari changed into a swimsuit and went swimming, while Oka examined the sand along the beach. Oka questioned what Mari was doing, but Mari casually explained that she was not technically part of the platoon, so she would support them in her own way while staying out of their work. Not long after, Usagi showed up in a swimsuit as well. She was excited and ran straight toward the ocean. Oka warned her not to run too fast, pointing out that her swimsuit might slip if she was not careful. Mari felt annoyed seeing Usagi's carefree energy. Oka ended up blaming Ikaruga, pointing out that they were supposed to be on a mission, yet everyone was acting like they were on vacation. In response, Ikaruga simply told Oka to pick whichever swimsuit she wanted to wear. Oka eventually chose one, explaining to Usagi and Mari that she was wearing it purely for practical reasons, so she could move more easily in the water while searching. Mari then asked Takeru to pay attention to them in their swimsuits, but Takeru instead found himself looking at Lapis, who was wearing a simple school-style swimsuit. They spent time enjoying the beach, playing volleyball, and taking part in fun activities like splitting a watermelon. Meanwhile, Ikaruga stayed under a beach umbrella, lying down in the shade because she disliked the heat so much. Takeru found it odd and asked about it, but Ikaruga told him not to worry and even joked about whether he needed her attention. She then casually asked him to apply sunscreen for her. Before long, Lapis noticed two people fishing nearby and asked Takeru about it. He explained that they were using rods and bait to catch fish. Soon after, Usagi called everyone over for lunch. Takeru eagerly ate his shaved ice but suddenly felt a sharp headache. Seeing that, Usagi suggested that ramen or yakisoba would be a better fit for a beach like this. Mari then brought up their mission again, but Oka pointed out that they would not be able to work properly on an empty stomach. Mari said she wanted ice cream and Usagi immediately agreed. Oka decided they should all go buy some together. All of a sudden, Takeru felt a strong pain in his stomach and rushed to the restroom. It seemed like he was dealing with a stomachache. Lapis wanted to go with him, but Mari and Usagi stopped her. Not long after, they saw a man being carried away on a stretcher. Oka asked what had happened. It turned out the man had been attacked by a giant creature and nearly drowned. At that moment, Oka realized that this was not the result of someone's magic. Lapis suggested that it was likely caused by a magical creature. It was the first time they had heard about such a possibility. Lapis explained that among magical creatures, there was a type known as a summer summoner, beings capable of creating endless summer conditions. Usagi suggested that they investigate it. Oka admitted that she was not very good at swimming and often ended up sinking. Usagi asked if she really could not swim, and Oka shyly shared that she had taken swimming lessons before, but her instructor had been too strict with her. Usagi then went to look for Ikaruga, but she was only interested in relaxing under a beach umbrella. Meanwhile, Takeru was still in the restroom because of a stomachache. With that situation, Usagi decided to take the lead and referred to their group as a mini 35th Test Platoon, since only 3 of them were available for the mission. Mari pointed out that while Usagi and Lapis might be small, she considered herself taller and did not think she should be called mini. Usagi responded by glancing at Mari in a teasing way, which made Mari feel embarrassed. As Usagi prepared to head out, Mari asked what they were supposed to do to catch a sea monster. Lapis suggested using a fishing rod and bait. She proposed that Mari and Usagi act as the bait, while she would handle the line. Mari found it confusing that she and Usagi had to be the bait. Lapis explained that their swimsuits would be effective enough to attract the creature. Not long after, the sea monster began to approach. Usagi suddenly felt something wrapping around her from below and panicked. Oka looked visibly worried. The creature's tentacles wrapped around both Usagi and Mari. Lapis called out to Takeru, asking what she should do, but since he was still in the restroom, he told her to wait for him. Mari and Usagi urged Lapis to pull the line, but when she tried, it snapped from the strain. The monster then dragged both of them into the water. A moment later, Takeru finally came out and rushed to help. He jumped in and activated his witch hunter mode. Unfortunately, the moment he hit the water, he started sinking. It turned out he could not swim. Mari and Usagi reacted with frustration. Takeru insisted that he was sinking because his armor was too heavy. Lapis apologized, realizing she should have prepared better for underwater combat. Usagi tried to tell Takeru to use the fishing rod, but communicating underwater proved difficult and Takeru misunderstood her instructions. Lapis then told him to transform her into a fishing tool. Once the monster bit the hook, Mari and Usagi were freed from its grip. Oka quickly deactivated the Gleipnir on Mari's neck so she could use her magic. Usagi and Mari then helped Takeru pull the line. Mari activated her Aurora Field magic and together they managed to haul the sea monster onto land. By the afternoon, they prepared to head back as the mission had been completed. To celebrate the success of their mini 35th test platoon, Oka handed out ice cream. Hearing that, Takeru brought up Mari's earlier comment about not being mini, which led Mari to respond in an annoyed tone, firmly insisting that she should not be underestimated. One day, Takeru went to visit his younger sister at a heavily secured facility. He had been instructed not to talk about his school life or anything related to the Inquisitors. After going through a series of strict inspections, he was finally able to meet his sister Kizeki. It had been a very long time since they last saw each other. Takeru noticed that Kizeki had grown taller. She did not seem to realize it herself and guessed it might be because she had been sleeping so much. In return, Kizeki mentioned that Takeru looked more handsome and asked if he had any interesting stories from school. Takeru described his friends, mentioning one with long, beautiful hair, another who always wore a scarf, and someone with blue hair. Kiseki then asked if he liked the girl with the long, beautiful hair. Takeru explained that what he felt was simply admiration. Kiseki said that whatever feelings he had for that girl, she felt happy for him. She was glad to see Takeru growing into a better person. Takeru found it hard to fully believe her. He could not understand how Kiseki could be happy while being confined in that place and forced to sleep most of the time. More than anything, he wanted her to live a normal life. Not long after, a staff member informed them that their time was up. Hearing that, Takeru said goodbye and promised he would come visit again. With a sad expression, Kiseki watched him as he walked away. That night, the 35th Test Platoon was on a mission to track down a suspect involved in a transaction involving a D-rank magical relic. Usagi fired her sniper rifle at the suspect's vehicle. The suspect tried to escape, but Oka chased from behind. The suspect used instant magic to attack her, but she easily avoided it thanks to the upgraded blue motorcycle she was riding, which had been modified by Ikaru Oka. The suspect managed to get past Oka, but Takeru was already waiting ahead. He used his sword to stop the suspect's motorcycle, making the capture quick and efficient. The next day, Usagi proudly told the others that their points had increased thanks to her efforts in stopping the suspect's vehicle. Ikaruga noticed that Usagi had changed a lot compared to before and seemed more confident. Oka then asked Takeru if he was feeling tired. She pointed out the dark circles under his eyes and suspected he had not been getting enough rest. Oka checked his temperature and reminded him not to push himself too hard. She also offered to listen if he needed someone to talk to. Oka suggested that Takeru take some time off to check on his younger sister. Takeru agreed, saying it sounded like a good idea. While walking through the school hallway, Takeru spotted Akira. Shortly after, he saw Kyoya together with Saitsu. He asked Kyoya what had happened to Akira, but Kyoya referred to her as a traitor. Kyoya and Sogetsu then headed toward Kizeki's control room. Inside, the staff were busy monitoring Kizeki's condition. Sogetsu was surprised that Kizeki had managed to survive after being given a dose 100 times stronger than what a normal human could handle, administered 30 hours earlier. Hayato asked if anything had changed since Takeru's visit. Sogetsu explained that since Takeru's visit, Kizeki's mental state had become more stable. Considering the enormous costs required to maintain Kizeki, Takeru's visit had proven to be highly beneficial. Meanwhile, the sedative effects on Kizeki were beginning to wear off, and she was about to wake up. All systems were put on high alert, and the Inquisitors were instructed to stay vigilant. As soon as Kizeki woke up, Sogetsu greeted her and asked how she was feeling. At first, Kizeki remained silent. Suddenly, a staff member reported that Kizeki's energy particles could no longer be measured. According to Sogetsu, this was an ancient sign of limitless demonic energy. Hayato realized that Kizeki's power did not come from magic. Sogetsu admitted that he could not be completely certain, but it was clear that her power was highly unusual. Once released from her body, anything it touched would begin to transform into part of Kiseki herself. This process could continue endlessly, and if left unchecked, it could eventually consume the entire planet. Sogetsu acknowledged that the idea of killing Kiseki was painful. However, he believed that if it was not done, her extraordinary power would never fully manifest. In his view, everything they were doing was meant to prevent the destruction of the world. At that moment, Kiseki looked completely devastated. She imagined her older brother leaving her behind and going off with another girl, and suddenly her body reacted on its own. Tears streamed down her face as a horn began to grow from her forehead. Kiseki had broken through her restraints, and the staff rushed to inject her with a suppressing substance to stop her. However, it seemed impossible. Kiseki kept releasing power far beyond her normal limits. Even Kyoya could barely stand watching it. Sogetsu pointed out that this situation was different from what had happened 5 years ago, and that Kiseki had clearly evolved since then. Hayato stated that he would keep suppressing that power until the frenzy stopped. He showed no fear at all, even knowing it could cost him his life. At that moment, the Inquisitor forces were firing at Kiseki's energy, but not long after, Hayato ordered all of them to fall back as he stepped in alone. When he arrived, Kiseki's body was already covered in a monstrous form. It had been 5 years since Hayato last faced her. He told Kiseki that she was free to hate him or be angry at him because he would not apologize, and he did not expect her to either. Hayato then prepared his weapon and got ready to confront her. Meanwhile, Kiseki kept asking over and over about her older brother's whereabouts. At the same time, Oka was out on a mission, standing guard at the target's expected arrival point. She contacted her teammates to check on their status. From a distance, Ikaruga seemed oddly captivated while watching Oka. She even asked Oka to lean forward slightly, clearly not taking things seriously. Elsewhere, Mari and Usagi were dressed in Santa outfits, handing out souvenirs to passersby as part of the operation. Mari found it strange that only she and Usagi were assigned to wear those outfits. From Oka's perspective, her own expression looked serious and focused, while Ikaruga gave off a more playful and carefree vibe. Mari couldn't understand why people were more interested in taking souvenirs from Usagi than from her, though it seemed Usagi's appearance made her more approachable. Takeru, meanwhile, was wearing a panda mascot costume and standing nearby to support the operation. Not long after, their target finally appeared. The target was a man wearing a hat, known as the Hamlin Sorcerer, a magic user classified as a B-level threat. Oka instructed Usagi and Mari to plant a tracker so they could locate his base later. Unfortunately, both the Hamlin Sorcerer and his assistant ignored Usagi when she tried to hand over the souvenir. They found it strange that her approach did not catch their attention. Then it was Mari's turn, and unexpectedly, the assistant accepted the item from her. From that, Ikaruga casually concluded that their targets seemed to prefer a more modest appearance. The Hamlin Sorcerer quickly took the souvenir and immediately realized something was wrong. Without hesitation, he launched an attack toward Mari, but she managed to block it using her magic. Suddenly, the projectiles transformed into rapidly growing plant vines that began spreading uncontrollably. The vines started causing chaos around the area, putting nearby civilians at risk. Oka immediately ordered Takeru to pursue the Hamlin Sorcerer. Takeru chased him into a narrow alley. Unexpectedly, the sorcerer encountered someone there and was suddenly taken down. Takeru wondered who could have done that. Moments later, he heard Kiseki's voice calling him Big Brother. Kiseki had tracked him by following the sound of his heartbeat. Suddenly, her body collapsed, and Takeru quickly caught her before she hit the ground. He asked why she was there. Kiseki explained that she had wanted to see him so badly because she wanted to be close to him again. Takeru was shocked to see that the Hamlin Sorcerer had already been completely defeated. Not long after, Oka arrived and asked who the girl with Takeru was. Usagi and Mari also rushed over to check on him. Suddenly, Takeru raised his sword toward Oka and told them not to come any closer. Oka didn't understand what was happening or who the girl was, but she could tell that Takeru was struggling. She reassured him that she was not his enemy. Takeru then apologized to Oka. She asked if the girl was dangerous. Takeru admitted that the girl with him was likely extremely dangerous. Oka became concerned that the girl might attack, but Takeru assured them that as long as she was near him, they would be safe. He even said he would do everything he could to stop her if anything happened. Oka and the others were shocked to learn that the girl was actually Takeru's younger sister. Kiseki was classified as an SS-level threat, and Takeru believed that she had escaped from confinement just to see him. Meanwhile, Soetsu approached Hayato to check on his condition after the fight with Kiseki. Hayato apologized, admitting that Kiseki had gotten away, but Sogetsu told him that, thanks to his efforts, Kiseki had managed to stop her rampage. Sogetsu added that if Kiseki was not found soon, the world could be in serious danger. Hayato immediately prepared to go after her, and Sogetsu decided to assign Kyoya to work together with him in tracking Kiseki down. Seeing the extent of the destruction around them, Soetsu realized he might have to request support from the committee. At the same time, when Kizeke opened her eyes, she found Takeru standing in front of her. He asked how she was doing, and Kizeke looked full of regret, saying that she had caused someone's death again. Takeru understood and reassured her that it was not her fault. Kiseki explained that even though her body moved according to her will, something still felt wrong. Takeru told her that the problem was not her heart, but her body. Not long after, Oka arrived and introduced herself as Takeru's teammate. She reached out her hand for a handshake. Kiseki seemed a little nervous, but she introduced herself in return. Oka told her not to worry, saying she believed things would not get any worse. Since Kizeke was the younger sister of the person who once saved Oka's life, she would never ignore her. Takeru added that Kizeke was shy and rarely spoke to anyone besides him. Oka did not mind at all and then asked Takeru to come with her for a moment. Takeru explained to his teammates that Kizeke was dangerous. Back in his hometown, she had unintentionally caused many deaths. He asked them not to misunderstand because Kizeke could not control her power and never acted out of her own will. Whenever she lost control, it was usually because she felt threatened. Normally, she was a very kind person. According to Ikaruga, Kizeki was suffering from an extreme syndrome that affected many people who were not born from witch lineages. In typical cases, this condition could be managed using Gleipnir. However, Kizeki produced such an overwhelming amount of mana that she had effectively become a walking disaster. Usagi wondered if it was dangerous for them to stay near her, but Ikaruga reassured everyone that Kizeke had likely exhausted her mana to get there, meaning it would take time for her to recover. Takeru was surprised by the explanation, but Ikaruga asked him to stay quiet until she finished. After that, Mary asked what they should do next. Takeru said it would be too dangerous to let Kizeki wander on her own, so the best option was to hand her over to the Inquisitors. Oka agreed and suggested they act quickly, escorting Kizeki themselves to ensure her safety. Takeru found it unusual, since Oka would normally contact the Inquisitors to send witch hunters. Oka admitted she had intended to do that, but since entering the area, all communication devices had stopped working. In reality, she had deliberately disabled them. She knew it broke the rules, but she chose to trust Takeru's words that as long as he stayed by Kizeki's side, he would not let her harm their teammates. Oka gave Takeru 1 hour to spend time with Kizeki. Ikaruga commented that Oka's idea was surprisingly thoughtful. Usagi added that if Kiseke had not been Takeru's younger sister, he probably would not have been given such leniency. Mari, on the other hand, was shocked by how different Oka was acting, which even gave her chills, and the two of them quickly fell into their usual bickering. Ikaruga told Takeru to stay put, assuring him that the others would take care of Kizeki before they left. They approached Kizeki and told her that she would be going on a date with Takeru, and that they would help prepare a disguise for her. Ikaruga brought out several outfits for Kizeki to try, ranging from dresses to traditional clothing and even more revealing styles. In the end, they chose a casual outfit for her. Kizeki was very grateful, as it was her first time wearing something like that. Mary excitedly said she hoped to become like an older sister to Kizeki and moved in to hug her. But Usagi and Oka quickly pulled her away. Oka warned Marie not to cross any boundaries. Takeru simply smiled at the lively scene. That night, Takeru and Kizeki went to a cafe and spent time talking together. Kizeki realized that all of Takeru's friends were just as kind as he had described. Even though they knew how dangerous she could be, they still treated her like Takeru's little sister. She described Marie as cool, Usagi as someone like an older sister, Ikaruga as nurturing, and Oka as beautiful. Then, Kizeki made a request. Takeru promised that he would listen to anything she asked. What she asked for, however, was for Takeru to end her life. Kizeki asked Takeru to end her life. She never expected that she would get the chance to spend time walking around with him, so she already felt truly happy. 5 years ago, without realizing it, she had caused the deaths of many people, and her power had grown out of control. That power kept trying to fulfill her inner impulses, and if left unchecked, Kizeki feared she would harm even more people, possibly in a way far worse than what happened back then. That was why she wished to die. However, she did not want anyone else to do it except Takeru. Unfortunately, Takeru could not bring himself to do it. Even if the entire world wanted Kizeki gone, he refused to take her life. To him, Kizeki was family, and family was something he wanted to protect, not lose. If he were ever forced to end Kizeki's life, then at that very moment, it would feel as though his own life had ended as well. Takeru promised that he would protect Kizeki until the very end. He asked her to let him keep trying, no matter what. Kizeki was surprised to realize that Takeru had not changed at all. Hearing his determination, she decided that if he was willing to protect her until the end, then she would try to hold on just a little longer. Meanwhile, in a rural village, Orochi approached Kanaria and asked whether she had been behaving well. Kanaria then asked what the higher-ups of Valhalla had told him. It turned out that Valhalla's leaders had informed Orochi that their target, the one they were supposed to secure, had escaped from prison. Kanaria immediately suggested that they destroy the Anti-Magic Academy right away. However, Orochi stopped her, saying that reckless behavior was something better left to Haunted and Mephistopheles. According to him, their mission was actually much simpler. They had been ordered to capture Kiseki. That night, Kiseki was walking with Takeru through an amusement park. She became fascinated by the Ferris wheel. Takeru explained that from the top, they would be able to see the entire city, and he invited her to ride it with him. Not long after, Kyoya appeared and blocked their path. He admitted that he was completely fed up with Takeru. Confused, Takeru wondered what Kyoya was doing there. It turned out that Kyoya had come with Akira, whose condition left Takeru shocked. Kyoya then aimed his gun at Kiseki. Takeru quickly told Kiseki to step back and immediately activated Lapis, transforming into his witch hunter form. A fight broke out between Takeru and Kyoya, and suddenly, a large explosion erupted from a nearby building. Takeru could not understand how Kyoya had obtained a relic eater. Kyoya revealed that Sogetsu had given it to him. At that moment, Takeru realized that Sogetsu was the one who had ordered Kyoya to eliminate Kiseki. To his shock, Akira had been turned into a relic eater as well, now going by the name Nero. Takeru demanded an explanation, but Kyoya refused to answer. Instead, he fired his weapon toward Kiseki. Thankfully, Takeru managed to shield her from the attack. As their battle continued, Hayato suddenly arrived and reprimanded them. He pointed out that misusing their witch hunter forms was a violation of the Inquisitor Code of Conduct. Soon after, the Inquisitors successfully surrounded Kiseki and placed a Gleipnir around her neck to restrain her. Takeru asked for a moment to speak with her. He apologized for not being able to show her more of the outside world and promised that he would meet her again. Kiseki then embraced Takeru, hoping that he would not forget that promise. Before long, she lost consciousness. Takeru panicked, but Sogetsu told him not to worry, explaining that Kiseki had only been given a sedative through the Gleipnir. He admitted that he had not intended to interrupt Takeru and Kiseki's time together, but he was simply carrying out his duty. In his view, aiding a high-level threat was a serious offense. Even though Kiseki was Takeru's younger sister, there could be no exceptions. Takeru then asked what would happen to her. Sogetsu explained that alchemy would be used to help suppress Kiseki's power, but she would need to be transferred to another facility. However, he refused to reveal its location, as Kiseki was likely a target for Valhalla. Sogetsu also mentioned that Kiseki had caused a major disturbance just to meet Takeru. He would not allow something like that to happen again, insisting that everything he did was for both Takeru's and Kiseki's sake. Meanwhile, Kanaria and Orochi were putting together a plan to kidnap Kiseki. During Kiseki's transfer, security was extremely tight, both on land and in the air. The aerial security unit, led by Kanata, suddenly encountered enemies. A firefight broke out, but the enemy managed to break through and board the aircraft. It turned out to be Kanaria, and she quickly realized that Kiseki was not on board. At the same time, news about the attack on Kanata's airship reached Hayato. He immediately told Kyoya to be ready for battle at any moment. Kyoya, however, questioned whether Hayato was truly on humanity's side and not aligned with darker forces. Hayato felt that it was not the right time to be asking something like that. Kyoya then stated that if Hayato did not stand on any side, he should not interfere with his mission of revenge. He declared his intention to wipe out all corruption in the world and warned that if Hayato could not act like a proper captain, he should step aside. Hayato admitted that it made sense why Nero had chosen someone like Kyoya. Not long after, the vehicle carrying Hayato and Kyoya was attacked by 3 dragoons. Hayato decided to handle 2 of them, leaving 1 for Kyoya, but Kyoya was eager to take them all on himself. Both of them prepared to enter their witch hunter mode by activating their relic eaters. Back when Takeru was still a child, he once saw a young girl locked inside a storage shed. Curious, he asked what she was doing there. The girl introduced herself as Kiseki. Later, Takeru asked his father about her and learned that Kiseki was actually his younger sister. His father explained that the daughters of the Kusanagi family were always born with demonic traits, and for generations, the family had ended their lives shortly after birth. However, the demonic power had grown stronger over time, to the point where Kiseki could no longer be killed, even after extreme attempts to stop her. One day, Takeru found his father badly injured. His father told him that Kiseki had escaped from the shed. He handed Takeru a sword and told him to choose whether to end Kiseki's life or protect her. Takeru eventually found Kiseki near a cliff, where her body had already transformed into something monstrous. Kiseki begged Takeru to put an end to her suffering, but there was no way he could bring himself to harm his own sister. She looked devastated as she called out to her older brother. The force within her kept urging her to destroy everything, but Kiseki cried out that she did not want that. Desperate, she called for Takeru's help. She then fell into the ravine, and in that moment the entity within her grew even larger and overwhelmed her completely. Takeru suddenly woke up from his sleep, calling out Kiseki's name. Oka apologized to him for everything that had happened. Because of her idea, they had ended up being locked in a cell. However, Takeru said that thanks to Oka, Kiseki had at least been able to experience the outside world, and for that, he was actually grateful. Oka then asked Takeru to let her share some of his burden. Takeru was confused about why she would go that far. Oka explained that she simply wanted to thank him. Over the past few months, ever since joining the 35th Test Platoon, she had finally experienced a sense of peace. It might have sounded simple, but to her it meant everything. Oka, who had once lived solely for revenge, believed she would never feel peace again, yet somehow she had found it. She told Takeru that it was all because of him, and that he had changed her. She also reminded him of something he once said, which was why she now asked the same of him, to let her share his burden. Oka reassured him that he was not alone. Takeru thanked her sincerely. Not long after, Nagharu came to see them. She knew some of the guards at the facility and managed to get a key, allowing her to free Takeru and Oka. Nagharu informed them that the vehicle transporting Kiseki had been attacked by Valhalla, so Takeru needed to get there right away. Unexpectedly, Usahi, Mari, and Ikaruga also showed up to help him. Takeru was genuinely thankful for their support in rescuing Kiseki. However, Usahi felt that something about him was different, and Mari sensed it too. Normally, Takeru would hesitate to involve his friends, but this time, he accepted their help without much resistance. Both Usagi and Mari began to suspect that something had happened between Takeru and Oka while they were in the cell. Oka's face quickly turned red, and she asked her friends not to make a big deal out of it. Meanwhile, Hayato and Kyoya had successfully taken down the dragoon that was blocking their path. Not long after, one of Valhalla's leaders, Orochi, appeared in front of them. Hayato immediately told Kyoya to escort the vehicle and move ahead to the destination. He understood that Orochi was far too powerful for Kyoya to handle, so Kyoya needed to stay focused on his assigned task. Orochi then questioned whether Hayato truly intended to fight him, confidently pointing out his own overwhelming strength. In response, Hayato activated his Relic Eater weapon and prepared himself for battle. At the same time, Takeru was on his way to the location. He asked Lapis if they could move any faster, but she warned him that increasing their speed would drain the mana he needed for the upcoming fight. Takeru brushed off the concern and insisted that she accelerate anyway. Meanwhile, Kyoya, who had been tasked with transporting Kiseki, suddenly stopped midway. He refused to continue escorting someone he considered dangerous like Kiseki. Activating his Witch Hunter mode, he prepared to shoot her. Before he could pull the trigger, Takeru arrived just in time to stop him. Confused, Takeru questioned why Kyoya wanted to kill Kiseki when she had never done anything to him. However, Kyoya admitted that living among people he saw as corrupt had filled him with disgust, and he wanted to eliminate them all. Not long after, Akira appeared, clearly pleased to see Kyoya consumed by such intense hatred. Takeru blamed her for pushing Kyoya down that path, but Akira calmly explained that it was Kyoya's own desire. Her role had simply been to grant him power, while his thirst for revenge served as her reward. Takeru firmly told Kyoya that the Relic Eater was not truly Akira, because his comrade would never do something like that. Enraged, Kyoya fired his weapon at Takeru, who quickly dodged the attack. Kyoya continued his assault, firing a long-barrel frag shot as Takeru moved, followed by a slug shot. Takeru skillfully avoided each attack, then closed the distance and leaped toward Kyoya. He even managed to deflect Kyoya's attacks with his sword. Gathering all his strength, Takeru unleashed the dual-blade technique, Yamada no Orochi, and succeeded in destroying Kyoya's weapon. A massive explosion followed shortly after. Realizing that continuing the fight was no longer the priority, Takeru decided to move on. He asked Lapis about Kiseki's location, but she urged him to deal with the situation in front of him first. Kyoya stood back up, insisting that the fight was not over. Takeru tried to convince him to stop, warning that continuing could cost him his life, but Kyoya declared that he did not fear death. Just as Kyoya was about to attack again, Oka intervened and shot him, causing him to revert to normal. She then instructed Usagi to keep him in her sights from the rooftop. Even so, Kyoya warned Takeru that he would regret not killing Kiseki when he had the chance. After that, Kyoya let himself fall. Oka, however, knew there was a river below, and if Kyoya truly was a Relic Eater contractor, he would survive. She then told Takeru that this was his chance to take Kiseki and return to the school. Takeru rushed to the vehicle and removed Kiseki's restraints. As she regained consciousness, she softly apologized to him. Takeru reassured her, promising that he would protect her and find a place where she could stay safely. From a distance, Soitsu observed everything. He noted that Takeru had finally realized Kiseki's power could grant wishes. As long as no one else could end her life, Kiseki's wish was for Takeru to be the one to do it. Takeru carefully lifted Kiseki out of the vehicle, but she asked him not to look at her. Her thoughts were in turmoil, repeatedly expressing a desire to be freed from her suffering. Tears streamed down her face as she gently touched Takeru's cheek. Suddenly, vines burst out from the ground and struck Takeru, leaving him unable to move. Haunted had appeared out of nowhere to take Kiseki away. He wanted her to join Valhalla and help bring chaos to the world. Seeing Takeru collapse, Kiseki cried out in distress. A horn reappeared on her forehead, and the presence within her began to grow stronger once again.